towering grandiose buildings stood tall under the peaceful blue skies, all part of a prestigious academy that hones magic and sword talents in the continent. In this place, some students have believed that swordsmanship was justice, while there are others who thought magic was everything. These opposing people were in conflict over their respective authorities, but time came that the skies were covered by swarms of flying monsters, while on the land roamed the four-legged beasts of terror. It was the time of the invasion of the creatures of darkness aiming to devour humanity. Their strengths were far beyond normal humans' ability to contend with. Awaking from their long slumber, they began wreaking havoc in the human realm. But these dark times were the period when the legend usually appears, when the world needs him desperately. He was the strongest man, wearing a proud and confident smile as he cast his powerful magic against the enemies. He was the light of a lamp that burned off the moths in these dark and chaotic times. He was a new hope, and from him emerged a new wave of powerful humans standing alongside him with the same purpose. But this is all a story for a little later. It was 1,000 years ago when there was a different man hailed as the strongest. He knew that his battle would determine the fate of humanity, whether they will perish or be saved. That's why he resolved himself as he swung down his sword, vowing to never lose the battle. He conjured a powerful orb of mana that exuded a blinding glow while the swinging of his sword displayed his absolute mastery in it. He was Baru, the magic sword saint who stands at the pinnacle of humanity. He struck a fighting pose as he smiled confidently, ready to take down his enemy. Baru leaped and instantly closed the distance between him and the monstrous demon king Jira. He clenched his jaw and gritted his teeth as he went in for an attack. He swung his sword down with all his might, unleashing a purple cutting wave against the demon king. Seeing that he survived it, Baru commented that he's not bad. This prompted him to conjure a massive and powerful magic circle. From that circle, he unleashed a shower of magic projectiles, all of which were rendered ineffective by the monster's barrier. The Jira flashed a teethy grin and said it was his turn to attack. From his fist erupted a storm of ominous purple energy, prompting Baru to erect a barrier. In response to the monster's attack, he began casting a special great magic. With the elements hovering harmoniously all around him, he cast the Prism Ruler spell. All these different elemental orbs began condensing into a single powerful orb. He held this immense power in his hands as it began emitting a blinding light. From this spell, he was able to conjure a divine sword that can cut down everything in the world. He smiled as if he was having fun and declared that the real fight had just begun. Wielding the strongest power of humanity in his hands, he told the demon to savor it to the fullest. A short while, and blood was seen dripping to the ground. Baru managed to cut off the demon's tail, but just from that, the magic sword saint was already panting. This just goes to show how formidable of a foe the absolute demon king is, who said he didn't expect getting wounded that deeply. Baru smiled and asked if that was his way of praising him, then charged against the attacking demon king as he said his thanks. He was yelling and swinging with all his might as he called the demon king's name. From the skies cracked up ferocious lightning strikes, signaling the approach of something ominous. A mysterious figure clad in a purple cloak stepped forward. They were watching the battle from afar, remarking that both warriors were now on the brink of death. They did not waste any more time and seized the time to cast a powerful spell, conjuring a massive and ominous purple magic circle that covered the skies over them. The mysterious figure smiled and sarcastically apologized to the Demon King. They continued feeding the magic circle with more power, saying it was for the sake of the future. A powerful ray of purple energy bursted mercilessly, leaving nothing but obliteration on its wake. It approached the magic sword saint and the absolute Demon King, who were fighting at that time. The Demon King recognized the incredible power that approached him, while Baru was surprised to see the intervention of a third party in their duel. The two of them were engulfed in a massive explosion that followed afterward. As Baru's consciousness drifted away, he recognized that the attack just now was that of a demonic magic power. But what puzzles him the most was that Jiro was also killed in the process. He could only wonder who did it as he slowly fell to the ground. He loudly landed on the dry soil, with his back laying flat to the ground. His eyes were droopy as he could barely keep himself awake. The rain falls down as if to mourn the tragedy that befell on him. He asks if he's going to die in a place like that. He laid down on the ground alongside Jira's lifeless body, wondering if humanity will be saved or perish. He raised his hand one last time, declaring that he stood on the pinnacle of humanity as the strongest magic sword saint. His last moments were full of regrets. He wanted to protect humanity until the very end. As his hands fell down, humanity had lost the very pillar that protected them. 1,000 years later, and the Bullied Academy now stands as one of the most prestigious academies in the world. But like many normal schools, bullying is prevalent in this place as well. The bully balled his fist and gritted his teeth as he swung for a punch, sending the poor Dre to the ground, with which he let go of his magic book and sword. The bullies sarcastically checked up on him and told him that he was really weak and pathetic. With his hands on his hip, the bully gave him a look of disdain and called him a half-baked loser. He said that one is supposed to choose between magic and swordsmanship. That is because they need to dedicate their life to it and reach the pinnacle of their chosen path. The bully continued with his lecture, while Dre looked at him with a defiant gaze. The bully stepped on his sword and magic book, remarking on his attempt to learn both. It was irritating for the bully to see Dre suck at both fields. He grabbed his collar and called him an incompetent fool being presumptuous for even daring. But this treatment did not discourage Dre as he maintained his defiant gaze. He said that he idolizes the legendary magic sword saint who mastered both magic and swordsmanship. With a determined look on his face, he balled his fist and declared that he wants to become like him. The bully couldn't bear hearing his ideals and delivered a knee to Dre's gut. As he collapsed to the ground, the bully tried to collapse his dreams by saying that the magic sword saint was just a legend. He kicked him repeatedly and said it was impossible for humans. He gritted his teeth and told him to face reality, calling him trash. He sarcastically told him to hunt a big monster if he was serious about that kind of power. The bullies then left him, with the leader saying he could never do such a thing. But the undiscouraged Dre took his challenge seriously, saying he just needed to defeat a monster. The next day, he embarked on a journey to traverse the forest full of monsters. He was so determined, despite all the ridicule he received. He pulled out his sword, believing that all of his efforts will one day bear fruit. But now Dre was trembling in fear as he raised his sword to face a gigantic monster. His eyes widened in horror as he looked at the gargantuan enemy. The massive monster then lunged at him, while he stood still trembling in fear. The monster whipped out his sharp claws, ready to tear him apart. The weak Dre couldn't evade the attack and got hit in the torso, suffering severe damage. He collapsed on his knees, blood gushing from his grave wounds as he let go of his sword. The monster let out a loud roar, as if to celebrate his victory over Dre's body. He tried to crawl away, wondering if he's going to die in a place like that. The image of the legendary magic sword saint flashed in his mind as he neared his death. He thought that he wanted to become someone like him. Tears flowed down his eyes as he muttered that he wanted to be someone capable of protecting people. The skies seemed to have heard his pleas and opened its mercy on him, surprising the monster who was standing in there. From the skies descended a bright ray of light, further confusing the monster. It can be seen coming down on the academy grounds from Dre's distance, summoning a pillar of light from the statue of the magic sword in the Bullied Academy. In turn, Dre's lifeless body began glowing as the monster stood surprised. In an empty space, Buru was seen lying down on the ground. He woke up and squinted his eyes. He then looked up and scanned the place, asking what was going on. At the same time, Dre's body stood up and asked the same question, thinking he should be dead. But it turns out that Buru had possessed Dre's body as he was surprised upon seeing it. Seeing his grave injuries, he began healing his wounds using his magic power. But he then heard a deep growl from around, alerting him of a monster's presence. Seeing the monster drooling as it stood before him, he asked if it was his doing. But there was no need to question if he was the one who did it. His bloody claws says it all. The monster lunged at him angrily, to which Dre, no, Buru, asked if he was coming at him. Flames began raging in from his hands as he told him that he'd better not. But the monster ignored his words and opened his mouth, ready to devour him. This prompted Buru to cast his flame spells and char him alive. A wide smile stretched across his lips as he said that he's not Dre, but a different person. The monster fell to the ground, utterly scorched off, while Buru stood triumphantly. His eyebrows knitted as he looked up, wondering what to do next. He scratched his head and looked at the direction of the Bullied Academy, wondering what exactly happened to him. Buru and Dre's body sighed as he finally made it out of the forest. He then looked around, scanning the towering buildings as he remarked that it was quite a fancy city. His gazes were then averted as something had caught his attention. He laid their eyes on the residents who were in their refined clothing, as well as the bustling and beautiful cityscape of that place. He figured out that civilization has clearly advanced compared to the era he lived in. He looked down and heaved a sigh as he fell silent for a moment. He then looked up. Everything was just as he expected. He recalled his final battle with the Demon King, as well as the attack from the mysterious demon clan members. He knew that back then, he had certainly died. Being unable to fulfill his duty of protecting humanity, his soul was bound with regret for an unimaginably long time. But it was able to escape from that abyss and was tethered to this world. He continued walking as he was lost in thought, thinking about the progress of time and reality. He knew that it wouldn't be strange if several decades had already passed. He gripped the lining of his uniform, deducing that the owner of the body he's in is a student. He caressed his chin and thought that he'd be able to gather various information in the academy. He gazed towards the direction of the Bullied Academy, contemplating if he must go there. Inside was the towering stone monument of the academy erected over its fancy buildings. This academy is composed of two main departments. Swordsmanship and magic are the main courses taught here. They were hailed as one of the country's leading large-scale academies. Buru was seen walking aimlessly around the campus grounds, scanning the whole place. He then lifted his face and averted his eyes as he saw something that caught his attention. He looked at the towering stone monument with a statue underneath it, remarking on its impressiveness. He took a closer look at the statue, wondering who it was. He asked if it was made to honor that person being portrayed in the statue. But upon closer look, he was starting to feel that something is weird with this statue. Only then did he realize that the man portrayed in the statue was none other than himself. He immediately looked at the plaque below it, which reads, "The Legendary Sword Saint and Demon King Battlefield." That is when everything finally sank into him, that this place where the academy stands was that wasteland where he and the Demon King fought. His head was starting to hurt as he tried to process what he had just learned. But that wasn't all the present was in store to surprise him as he overheard the two students' conversation. The face he made could never be painted when he heard that it has been 1,000 years since he defeated the Demon King. The two students continued with their gossip, unaware of how they unknowingly affected the subject of their conversation himself. He let out an exaggerated reaction over the fact that 1,000 years had passed and not just a few decades. He continued wondering why he suddenly woke up after 1,000 years. He held his hands up and wondered what happened to Dre's soul. And there's one more important thing he couldn't overlook as his face grew serious. It was the fact that he was not the one who defeated the Demon King. He looked down, wondering what had happened to the Demon Clan that killed both him and the Demon King. He turned his back on his monument, thinking that he needed to properly investigate. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching as they called to him, prompting him to turn. It was that trio of bullies again, wearing their repulsive smiles as they called him a half-baked one. But since he wasn't Dre himself, but Baru in the former's body, he was clueless and asked if they were talking to him. They confirmed to him that he was the one they were talking to and called him a fool for choosing both magic and swordsmanship. They then encircled him, saying they heard of his attempt of going to the forest to subjugate a monster. The clueless Baru in Dre's body asked who these people were. Suddenly, he was hit by a flash of information suddenly rushing through his head. He saw Dre's memories when he was bullied and assaulted, how their ridiculing of him made him go to the forest. He saw everything as he gritted his teeth. He grabbed the lining of his uniform, finally understanding what had happened to Dre. He learned that Dre had admired the magic sword saint so much that he wanted to be like him, and these people mocked him for that, leading to Dre getting seriously injured as he attempted to prove them wrong. And this matter isn't something he can just ignore. He closed one of his eyes and said that he remembered everything now. The bullies were confused, and their leader was furious with his sudden change in attitude. Baru embraced the identity of Dre Westgarden, a second-year student in the magic department. With this, Baru vowed to make Dre the man who will become the magic sword saint of this era. The bullies didn't like what he had just said and charged at him, prompting Baru to summon a blinding light made out of mana in response. He then shaped it into a sword, ready to cut them down. He raised his sword as he faced them with a fierce gaze emanating from his eyes. He told them to not scream in such an unsightly manner. The bully leader was surprised to see two of his underlings get blown away by Baru's attack. The two couldn't even move anymore, their whole bodies aching as they laid down. Baru then told these clueless bullies that the Dre they assaulted must have felt more pain than that. The bully couldn't even begin to comprehend what was happening in front of him. Baru then charged forward with his magic sword as he told them to watch carefully. He leaped in the air and declared that he's going to show them the sword of the half-baked one. The bully gritted his teeth nervously as he could only watch the attack approaching. The very same sword that they had mocked is now coming down at him with overwhelming power. The bully strains beneath a descending burst of blue force, panic etched across his face. The impact blasts him off his feet and sends his weapon spinning away. Meanwhile, Baru watches coldly as the bully spasms midair. He once again swung his mana sword and connected it to the bully's torso, making him slam into the building with his powerful sword attack. Baru stood over the crumpled bully with a condensed blade of mana in hand and warned that this is him holding back. The bully was sweating and trembling while the tip of Baru's mana blade hovered by his temple. Baru stands over him with daylight calm, making it clear the bully would already be dead in real combat. The bully crumples into a whimpering crouch, arms over his head. Baru regards him in silence, eyes flat and unreadable. Judging the lesson sufficient, Baru heaved a sigh. He then turned away and let the blade fade, saying he'll let him off with that much. The bully trembles and stammers that this was Dre's chance for revenge, asking if it was over already. He rubs the back of his neck and says that he really does not get it. Baru says through Dre's mouth that if he went any further, it would make Dre sad. He lets a small smile show, adding that this is the kind of person Dre is. The bully slumps against the cracked wall, baffled and speechless. Baru learned that Dre Westgarden is the owner of this body, who shares the same family name as him. He continued walking and thought that he must be a descendant of the same bloodline. A golden bell tolls overhead, shimmering under the sunlight. It rings above the academy, sending students scrambling. An instructor claps sharply, ordering lunch break over and students to move to their next class. Hearing this, Baru mutters that being a student is tough. Suddenly, the proctor then snaps his name with a pointed finger. Baru answers with a hesitant acknowledgement that they mean him. The instructor then pointed his finger on his chest and told him to immediately go to the training grounds. He fixed his eyeglasses and said that he's already a dropout at this rate. Baru watched the instructor leave, remarking on the teacher being unpleasant. He then stood, thinking about the magic of the current era, 1,000 years later than his time. A smile stretched across his lips at the thought of it, wondering how far the magic techniques of the present time have advanced. At Bullied Academy's magic training grounds, the classes line up before the targets. A nervous student summons sparks to snarl around his hands as he forces the spell to life. He then yelled the incantation for lightning ball. The measly crackling bolt clips the dummy, and onlookers cheer in awe of what he just did. Students wave and holler while Baru watches from the edge, frowning at the low-level magic proficiency the student had just displayed. He thought that even the village brats from his era could fling a cleaner lightning ball than that. To think magic has decayed this much in just a millennium is depressing for him. The teacher calls out his name, asking if he is enjoying the view as he slacks from the sidelines again. The teacher sneers that he is not scolding him, since he cannot even use beginner-level magic properly. The teacher mockingly adds that even if he wanted to join the class, he could not, while Dre smiles politely and asks the teacher what level of magic he can use. The teacher boasts that he can use every intermediate spell and even several advanced ones. He begins lecturing that magic is basically divided into tiers. First comes the beginner level. Next is the intermediate level. Above that lies the advanced tier. And at the apex is the rare special class. But Buru knew that back then, one had to master up to advanced just to be considered competent. Buru mutters that magic users have really gotten weak, prompting the teacher to snap in response. Smiling, Buru asks if the teacher would like to have a magic duel. He needles him, saying he wants to see his magic firsthand. The teacher bristles at the challenge, deeming him insolent. While polishing his glasses, he belittles Dre, insisting the gap in their abilities is obvious. He puts his glasses back on and accepts the duel, framing it as a lesson. Leaning in, the teacher vows to prove the outcome will be completely one-sided. With a menacing glare, he stresses that the massive disparity is between the two of them. The training grounds buzz as students gather to watch. The teacher faces off against Dre with a staff in his hand while onlookers gossip about the matchup. Dre stands calmly as murmurs spread that the teacher can wield advanced magic. They take positions on opposite ends of the court and signal they are ready to begin. The teacher starts weaving an elaborate advanced spell, magic circles flaring. He grins, boasting that he will restrain his power. Multiple blazing beams erupt from the spell, an advanced technique known as flash bullet. Blazing projectiles close in on Dre from all sides, yet he stands relaxed. He calmly raises a hand, eyes focused. With a sweeping motion, blue energy bursts out and redirects the beams away. The teacher staggers as glowing fragments rain down and his spell is broken. He then displayed an exaggerated stunned face. From the back, Dre remarks that the display is sufficient. He grinned as blue aura roared around him and began unveiling special grade magic. A tidal bloom of blue energy erupts from Dre, flooding the arena as streams surge past the startled teacher. A smirk then stretched across his lips while intricate glowing runes wrap his arm, power humming. Dre shouts his verdict. There is an overwhelming gap between them, no contest at all. Buru cast a powerful special grade magic, summoning immense and complicated magic circles, while the instructor stood before him with his jaws dropped as he deemed it impossible. Buru only smiled in response as he continued with his casting. An overwhelming bloom of bluish mana surged as he activated his Azure Slash. These waves of mana were then hurled towards the instructor's direction. The instructor was in utter surprise as he found his life still intact after witnessing such magic. Buru dispelled his magic and asked his rattled sensei about what was wrong. The students who were watching their duels had their mouths hanging, to which Buru said it was just a magic duel, and he wouldn't hit him with a special class magic. He then closed his eyes, telling him not to plan looking down on him again. He threw cold glares against the instructor, saying he might accidentally hit him if he did. This left the instructor in utter shock, dreading for his life as he heard his words. He then fixed his glasses, sweating profusely as he said he recognizes his skill. He gave him a serious stare as he began addressing the magic Buru had used, admitting the fact that it has surpassed the very own magic he himself had used. Hearing this, the audience of the duel couldn't believe that Dre's magic surpassed the teacher's. Buru flashed a satisfied smile through Dre's lips. He thought that there would now be fewer people mocking Dre, but the instructor wasn't done with him yet and called him. He caressed his chin and wore a curious look on his face, asking when did he gain such power. Hearing this, Buru realized that he is inside Dre's body, who's known to be a weakling. He began sweating profusely as he wondered how he should explain his situation. He knew that telling them the truth won't do any good as these people would never believe him. He lazily made an excuse, saying maybe he had just figured out the trick to magic. The instructor was not satisfied with his answer and snapped out, saying there's no way it was the reason Dre became stronger than him. He further added that he had completely changed since yesterday, may it be in terms of technique or magic power. He let out an awkward laugh and said that he was right. The magic skills and knowledge he has right now was that of when he was still the magic sword saint. It was revealed that magic power isn't tied to a mage body, making him feel like a completely different person. But unless he completely changed, a lot of it was still influenced by his soul. He looked at the curious instructor while wondering how he could possibly change so drastically in just one day. A screech was then suddenly heard, attracting the attention of everyone in the place. Above the dark skies emerged a swarm of ominous flying creatures. The instructor stuttered upon the sight of these creatures, wondering what they were. They were a humanoid monster with several eyes, a purple skin, and a pair of wings. Monsters that they have never seen before. Hearing that they haven't seen them before, Buru was confused since he thought it was a monster that lived around that place before. But there was no time to be confused. He pointed his electrifying hands towards them. He began casting his lightning spell as his fierce eyes stared at the approaching enemy. Without an ounce of hesitation, he pierced the monster's body with his powerful lightning while the others continued to lunge forward. The monster fell from the sky with a searing hole in its stomach. As he recalled his magic, Buru couldn't help but remark that they were just weaklings. The remaining monsters then activated their icy wings, flapping them as they hurled countless spikes from their wings. The confident Buru only smiled as he casted his flame magic, saying he could never be defeated by an attack like that. But he was then surprised upon seeing the students' reactions. They were running in fear. He wondered why they are so panicked like that, as a measly monster like that should be easy for them to deal with. His eyes widened in surprise to see that only the instructor was left to fend off these monsters. He realized that the abilities of the magicians have declined in this age. The instructor casted his flash bullet magic spell against the group of monsters. From the single ray of magic bullet bursted forth countless magic rays that bombarded the airborne enemies. The instructor proudly stood before his display of power as he raised his magic staff. Still, some monsters came out unscathed and were smiling provocatively at them instead. Buru looked at them, thinking that even a monster of that level is a considerable threat. But then he heard a young girl casting his fire spear from afar, catching his attention. Despite being scared, she stood her ground and tried to fend off the monsters. Still, her courage meant nothing if her spells couldn't harm the monsters. But still, Buru finds her courage commendable as he smiles in admiration. The monster was utterly enraged and screeched at her, scaring off the last bit of courage she had. Buru swiftly took action and stepped in, saving the girl from an inevitable death as he carried her away. He skid across the ground and eventually stopped as they are now out of danger's way. He said that her power would grow stronger if she trained hard, making her blush. Only then did she realize that it was Dre, the one who was known to be a weakling, who had saved her. He carefully put her down and told her to watch properly what he was about to do. He activated the same fire spears as the young girl did, but his spells were far more refined and exponentially stronger. With a smile on his face, he told her that it could become the strongest magic with the right training. Under a stormy sky, red-eyed harpies screech as they swoop with spread purple wings. Buru thrusts up his hand and summons spears of golden flame while Selly watches, startled by the rising blaze. Selly looks up wide-eyed amid drifting embers as he said that unleashing the magic sword saint's full power leaves no way back. From behind, Buru and Selly face a flock of harpies overhead while torrents of fire rocket upward to meet it. A roaring fireball blossoms in the sky and blasts the creatures apart. Buru smiled as the flames swirled from his palm, saying that the magic of this era is different. Selly trembles with awe, hands clenched at her chest, as sparks glow around her. A harpy shrieks and dives toward them in a spinning rush. In the courtyard, the swooping monster bears down on Buru with flame ready in his hand while Selly stands behind him. Buru smiles confidently, noting the foe is closing the gap. The harpies plunge faster through the night as Buru reflects on limits even powerful mages have. One descends with talons poised over a calm Buru while he explains there is always a brief opening when casting. Blue radiance surges between Buru's fingers as he said that closing in only works against an ordinary mage. He cleaves forward with his shining magic sword slash as a red-eyed harpy dives in. He smiles with quiet confidence while blue light gathers in his palm, saying he's far from ordinary. He drives off his back foot in a sharp lunge that scatters dust. A cross-shaped burst of azure energy flares from his hand as he creates a magic sword. From above, Buru darts across the courtyard with a glowing blade as a harpy swoops to meet him. A whirlwind of blue slashes spirals around him, shredding the flock in a technique named Sky Dance Tempest. Buru slows to a jog as the last feathers fall and the field clears. Selly and the instructor rush in wide-eyed the aftermath. Amid drifting feathers, Buru raised his hands slightly and looked satisfied with the effortless outcome. Sunlight gleams on the towers of Bullied Academy's library. Meanwhile, Buru was seen taking a startled breath. He then clutches his head over an open book as he complains how his body hurts so much. Nearby students peep from the shelves while he groans at the table. He slumps onto his book with a strained grimace, thinking that he felt fine right after the fight. Alone at a long table, he sags with a weary exhale while thinking about the pain creeping in as time passes by. He studies the pages with a thoughtful frown as he thought of finishing the books and preparing a training plan. From an overhead view of the quiet library, Buru studies alone at a long table while another student browses the shelves. After the monster attack, the academy decided that classes are suspended for a while, giving him some free time. He tried to look into what happened after he died, but every history book said he defeated the Demon King. Framed by stacks of books and window light, he steeples his hands and frowns, thinking the account feels wrong to him. It was said that the magic sword saint sacrificed himself to slay the Demon King, after which the demon race is pushed to the continent's edges. Buru strolls between white stone columns on campus as he recalls his own legend enduring for 1,000 years. He walks a corridor with hands in his pockets, thinking neither the Demon King nor the demon who killed him ever reappeared in history. It was said that they showed no signs of further attacks on humanity, making him wonder where the demons disappeared to. From behind, Buru scratches his head in frustration at a doorway, saying he still does not understand. He stops and looks to the side under clear daylight, reacting as if something just caught his attention. In the courtyard, the boy spots the red-haired girl practicing magic at the dummy range. It was Selly, distractedly checking her hands as her practice fizzled. He approaches with a smile, causing her to jump in surprise upon noticing him. She chuckles, remembering that the official magic grounds are closed until the monsters are cleared. Bowing deeply, she thanks him for saving her earlier, feeling regret that he vanished before she could thank him properly. They remembered the frantic instructor as the girl teases him about practicing swordsmanship too, while the boy thinks it is a hassle. With a soft smile, she admits she was genuinely surprised by how strong he has become. Turning back to the targets, she reflects on how she wants to be strong enough to defeat monsters too. Small flames sputter on her palms as she laments that no matter how hard she tries, it does not work. She forces a laugh, confessing it feels like she is just a failure. The boy watches while she expresses her frustration with how little she has grown. She thinks there must be a reason why even beginner magic will not work for her. Maybe her capacity is just low. This then prompted Baru to ask to examine her hand. Startled, she offers her palm with hesitation. He takes her hand and she reacts with shock. Eyes closed, he focuses to measure how much magic power she really has. An enormous pillar of light and mana erupts skyward. She gasps as electricity dances around their joined hands. His eyes fly open in shock at her magic power. She turns with a clueless expression as the blinding column of mana rages behind her. This made Baru conclude that it is absolutely overwhelming and she has a ton of magic power. He gauges her aura and notes that even in his past life, he rarely saw power like this. Realization dawns that it is not that her magic power is too low, but rather it is so vast she cannot control it. He asks her name and flustered, she tells him she is Selly while wondering if he remembers her. He then echoed her name to himself, to which her anxious and hopeful reaction shows as she watches him. He beams and declares that she is capable of casting special class magic. Selly forces a nervous laugh, shaken by his assessment. From a few steps back, she tries to wave it off while he watches. She bows her head, convinced she has no talent. She clenched her trembling hands as she recalled harsh judgments from her teachers and classmates. His lips tilt as he begins to counter that view. He crossed his arms and told her that they were all just weaklings and couldn't notice her strength, leaving her startled. She throws up a hand, rejecting the idea outright and deeming herself a failure. He called out her name and asked her directly if she wanted to become stronger, causing her to halt in confusion. His intense eyes laid down a stark challenge. Her lips parted as she was flabbergasted by what Baru had said, causing her to think deeply. As she stuttered, she gathered courage under his intense gaze. Selly, with her eyes closed and eager to resolve, shouted and declared that she wanted to become stronger. He grins widely, proud of her fighting spirit and telling her that it is what it takes to be a mage. In a wide training room, he started explaining that Selly possesses an incredible amount of magic power, surprising her in disbelief. Baru pointed at her and scolded her for pouring an excessive amount of magic power into her beginner-level magic, making her cry in surprise and embarrassment. Selly flusters while he notes that controlling the amount of magic power is a skill, and it takes time to properly wield a beginner-level magic. He turned his gaze at her with a smile, telling that there is one type of magic that doesn't require it. He confidently unveils in a swirling field that a special class magic needs less precision. Selly raises a timid concern about its difficulty. She explained that it is so advanced that only the headmaster of the academy could use a special class magic, causing Baru's eyes wide open. Baru grins confidently and tells her that she is on the same level as their headmaster. She freezes in shock at his overwhelming implication. He confidently stated that he can wield that class, as well as he noted that it needed an immense mana cost. His gaze went sharp on Selly. Her expression softens when he adds that her capacity fits the requirement. She flails, feeling the pace is too fast as she couldn't keep up with the overwhelming information. He raised his index finger with a smile as he claimed to teach her with her first special class magic. He leads her to begin, framing it as a simple first step, which made her weep in hesitant and disbelief. She watches him give her instructions as she couldn't believe that she's going along and learning special class magic. Selly doubts herself, thinking advanced magic is impossible if basics fail. A huge comedic boom follows into her thinking of what a special class magic is. She cringes in dizziness as she thinks about it. He jogs across the courtyard to set up a lesson. He selects a safe spot and introduces a simple fire-based special spell. Selly silently likens it to a basic fire spear. She wavers, doubting she can use a special class magic. She steadies herself and converts doubt into resolve. She strides forward with her hand raised in front, channeling the will to improve and become stronger. He observes her readiness with an approving look. Selly worries about collateral damage from the spell. She raises her arms toward the open courtyard, fretting over the surroundings. His eyes narrow, acknowledging that damage would normally occur. He surrounds himself with power and urges her to aim at him without restraint. His focused stare assures he will handle the aftermath. Standing on the opposite ends of the practice ground, he was surprised that Selly wasn't shaken anymore and ready to aim. Selly gathers blazing mana between her hands with steady focus. A torrent of flame races toward as she remembers his victory over the monsters earlier. Selly steels herself and declares she will trust Baru as flames surge around her. She stands on a blazing sigil while her power gathers around. Pillars of fire lance skyward, shaking the courtyard as Buru watches her. She holds her stance while the twin fire pillars keep climbing. A colossal golden gate materializes amid the heat behind her back as her eyes widen. Her eyes blaze with resolve as the gateway completes. The gate splits open and light bursts outward. The gate opened widely as a tidal rush of sun-like fire erupts from within. She thrusts her arm forward, invoking the name of Prominence Gate. Her eye widens as the torrent swells even larger. She turns her gaze and breathes that it truly is special class magic, and calls out to Buru. The roaring wave of flame hurtles toward Buru, but he stood unfazed as he welcomed to receive it. Buru grins with approval upon witnessing Selly's special level magic. He raises his hand and declares the spell tender elimination as blue energy engulfs Selly's fire. A lattice of ice surges up to contain the raging flames as Selly braces herself due to the magic force. The glacial dome locks tight around the inferno. She then gasps in awe at the sudden shield. The sphere settles between them as cool waves sweep the courtyard. Buru flickered his finger as the sphere dismantled and a small flame was left. She watches glittering shards drift down from the sky. Buru strolls over and remarks that trusting him was the right choice. She breathes as her lips parted in awe that she really did cast special class magic. Buru smiles and notes there is not a single trace of damage to the surroundings. Her cheeks flushed as she looks at him in surprise and asks who he really is. He shrugs it off with a wide smile, saying only her success at casting special class magic mattered. Selly exhales, the shock settling as she accepts what happened. She reflects aloud in awe that she truly cast special class magic while clenching her fist to her chest. She studies her hands, stunned that despite shaky control and calling herself a failure, she managed to do it. Buru observes that she has more talent than he expected while Selly was enjoying herself because of her achievement. He suddenly calls her name, drawing her attention. Buru meets her gaze and begins to propose with eagerness. He asks her to become his apprentice. Selly stiffens as Buru proposes taking her as his apprentice. Buru smiles and praises her as the Academy's standout talent. Selly was surprised by his sudden proposal while he leaves the decision entirely to her. Selly hesitates, weighing his warning that refusal would be a mistake. With eagerness in his eyes, Buru vows to raise her into the highest level mage alive. Buru then asks her about her decision while Selly steps toward him to deliver her answer. A smile formed on her lips as if stating the obvious. Beaming, Selly accepts and asks Buru to make her his apprentice. Selly gazes at Buru with shy warmth. She admits his influence has already changed her in a single day. He looked at her with a proud smile, while Selly looked at him with resolve and requested his guidance as her master. A tranquil forest can't be swayed under a bright sky. Buru brings up the apprentice matter as they enter the woods. Selly leads with a map while Buru follows, unsure why they are in such a place like that. She sheepishly reveals they are here for her remedial task after poor practical magic grades. Buru reacts in surprised disbelief at the extra assignment. She added that she needs to reach the sunlit stone altar hidden deep in the forest. She then explains channeling magic into the altar's communication device as the assigned task. Selly infers Buru got the same assignment, and he responds with exasperation. While pushing through foliage, Selly admits she was told to finish quickly, but has not yet. Remembering the monster incident, Selly with a shy smile admits she was too scared to come alone. Buru notes that the classes were cancelled and wonders why she did not wait, making Selly flusteredly justify rushing. His brows furrowed as he thinks she is a bit clueless but decides she is safe while he is with her. Buru scratched his head as he frets about students who cannot even use beginner-level magic. As they cross a fallen log, Selly worries the weakest students could get hurt while Buru follows her lead. Removing the hanging vines, he cautioned that monsters could attack and cost her life. Selly answers that things have been fine so far as she looks ahead. They head deeper into the forest, while she explains the situation around the academy and the kingdom's monsters. She sighs deep and clutches her forehead, as she adds that most local monsters avoid humans and are weak. Buru narrows his eyes, doubting that claim. He knew that most monsters do attack humans, with only a few exceptions. Selly suddenly remembers a dangerous giant lizard near the academy and advises staying away from it. The giant lizard with glowing eyes and fangs appears as he scoffs that such a weak thing being an irregularity seems odd. He tells Selly there used to be much stronger monsters here. She then reasons that would have been over 1,000 years ago. A flashback shows the magic sword saint striking down the demon king and the demon race withdrawing from the kingdom. A map cutaway shows that since then, monsters that feed on magic weaken steadily near human lands. Selly sums it up, saying that is what they say anyway. Buru looks down as he thinks deeply, beginning to piece things together. Over the dark night sky with nobles pictured, he reasons that fewer fights and demons are gone while monsters become weaker, human combat skills decline. A somber graveyard reinforces the thought as he reflects that it makes sense but still feels off. Then a new, ominous winged creature looms that he has never seen before. He wonders if it is not native to this area and concludes they will have to handle it regardless. He decides they cannot ignore it and channels crackling power through his fingers. In a full action splash, Buru hurls a blazing bolt of lightning. The lightning bolt rips through the flock as the winged monsters scatter and the strike tears the sky. One harpy is fried black and tumbles from the air trailing smoke. Buru lowers his hand crackling with power. unimpressed at such a weakling. He pauses when he suddenly senses something as Sully peeks from behind him. From below, the horned red-eyed demon wolves prowl out of the brush, growling. Buru points past her, asking if she still thinks those monsters are harmless, and Sully flails in alarm. Wolves circle and lunge towards them as he steps forward to shield her. A lunging wolf meets a bursting wave of magic from Buru's outstretched palm, making Sully brace herself from the impact. He conjures an azure blade and slashes in a cross. Spinning arcs of light carve a sphere around him, sending wolves flying. Hood up with his blade humming, he assesses that monsters attacking humans are popping up everywhere. With a worried expression, Sully admits the current academy barely has anyone with real combat experience. She gestures toward Buru, admitting that against aggressive monsters, students will get hurt at this rate. Buru concludes taking on an apprentice was the right move. Sully then blinks in confusion. With wolves growling behind him, Buru grins and reasons that at least one battle-tested mage will be joining the academy. Sully trembles with a map in hand, eyes wide with realization. He taps her shoulder casually as he stole the map, remarking that a little aggression is perfect and exactly the fierceness needed for training. Sully steps forward unsure and scared as Buru confidently folds his arms behind her. Wolves close and below as he challenges her to prove she can take them all down. Two horned shadow wolves tear forward, red eyes burning as motion lines rake the ground. Sully flinches back with her hands up in panic. Buru stands behind her with arms folded in calm composure as he urges her to focus her power. She turns with steadier breathing as he tells her that even those kinds of monsters can be handled and it will be easy to knock them aside. She turns her gaze as she realizes. With eager resolve, she faces the wolves as she surges forward with determination. A magic circle blazes at her feet and twin walls of flame rise, hemming in the charging wolves as she insists she can do this. Celis eye lit and fierce. She casts Prominence Gate as a towering, door-shaped burst of fire erupts above and pours a sunbright inferno down. The horned wolves are engulfed, their silhouettes writhing as flames lick fur and horns. The wolves become almost all fire, with only dark, dissolving shapes remaining inside the roaring blaze. The flames gutter out, leaving a scorched path as she lowers her hands toward the smoldering ground she just created. She spins around with flushed cheeks and sparkling eyes, overjoyed at having defeated a monster for the first time. Buru strolls up with a proud grin, praising her achievement as his apprentice. He explains gently that with more combat experience, she will learn to use more than just special class spells. He then added to gain control of her mana and handle it far more skillfully, while fresh paw prints appear nearby. He gestures to the tree line where more horned wolves fan out, calling it her first goal. She cries out in alarm as the pack lunges. A wolf snaps at his head, but he barely blinks as impact sparks flash around his calm face. He pivots and drives a glowing fist into a charging muzzle while other wolves slide in on clawed paws. In a barrage, his fists blur and multiple wolves are struck with rapid-fire blows. He lands in a crisp fighting stance, surrounded by reeling beasts yet perfectly composed. A horned black wolf charges, headlong with blazing red eyes and a rolling growl. Buru snatches one mid-rush, pivoting and keeping the beast overhead as his leg sides up in a brutal throw. The wolf slams into a tree with a splintering crash as bark and leaves explode. From a safe distance, he muses about hoping Sully will someday be able to do this much as a mage, while Sully pleads not to ask the impossible. He smiles and notes that a mage should also be able to fight barehanded since it could be useful in a pinch. Though Sully protests, it is not that simple and thinks she cannot just swap between styles. He pumps a fist, reasoning that he needs to focus on one thing at a time, but if she can do both it will give them an advantage in any situation. With a shrug, he starts walking, remarking that they should move forward while Sully trails after him thinking she was prepared for this. Sully swallows nervously as she admits inwardly that her master is too unconventional, while his voice drifts in reassurance that he will be there to handle it. In the distance, he waves a hand toward the scorched path, prompting her confusion before adding that there will be battles ahead, and he will take care of the fire before it spreads. A wide aerial view reveals the forest canopy parted around a charred corridor as a pillar of energy jets upward to settle the aftermath. A polished shoe steps onto pale stone. The altar opens into view with a tall obelisk at its center and light motes drifting while Buru stood in the distance. Sully staggers in bent double and panting with her hands clamped to her knees. Buru asks what is wrong and she slumps flushed, admitting she is simply too tired. She pants about being at her limit after getting there as she recalls her fight, while his rebuttal floats in that she has only used special class magic 5 times. He was worried and questions why she is already exhausted and adds that he was trying to make her understand, while she bristles in shock. Sully panted frantically while she privately thought she was naive. She rallies with her fist cocked in determination, declaring that they managed to make it to the stone altar. The pair jog up the steps as Sully explains that they only need to channel magic into the communication device to complete the task. A breeze spirals overhead as Buru halts and looks up at circling leaves. He throws an arm out to stop Sully as she trots after him, glancing back in confusion. In the shadowy trees, something barrels through the trunks as twin red eyes flare in the darkness. A massive silhouette launches skyward and drops toward the plaza while Buru looks up. The creature lands, revealed as a hulking spike-plated wolf beast with burning eyes. Its glowing eye fixes on them with menace. Sully freezes, wide-eyed with sweat beading. The monster slams down with a roar, shards of stone flying as Sully screams and stumbles back. Buru grabs her around the shoulder mid-fall and asks if she is okay. The beast looms, crackling with ominous energy, and Buru thinks that even a mage from 1,000 years ago would have a hard time against it. It charges again with bellowing claws tearing through the broken plaza. Sully collapses to the ground in fear, while Buru reflects that it is too much for her to handle. He steps forward with a blazing blue sword unfurling around his arms, deciding he will have to defeat it himself. The monster's eye contracts with hostile focus. A green aura seizes broken slabs, lifting them while Buru readies power at range. He recognizes the tactic with calm confidence on his face. The plated wolf crouches and rockets forward wrapped in green force. Buru sprints, dodging sweeping energy and flying debris to pull its attention while calling out Sully. Suddenly something catches his eye. A cool, sideways glance signals a wordless suggestion to retreat. Firelit memories mingle with the present as the beast looms and Sully's choice hangs in the balance as the prominence gate appears behind her. Sully raises trembling hands and admits inward doubt. Her legs quiver above a glowing sigil as uncertainty gnaws at her. She steadies her breath, and resolve kindles in her gaze. With arms spread before the blazing gate, she refuses to retreat as resolve solidifies under her master's gaze. The beast snarls with bared fangs. It barrels ahead with green fields flinging stone like battering rams. A flare of blue light appeared, intent on giving his apprentice the chance to prove herself. He shears apart the incoming rubble with his blue sword, clearing space around her. With a fierce grin, he brushes off hesitation as debris drifts in his aura. He skids into a low stance, baiting the beast and signaling his partner to go all out. Sully steadies her resolve and commits to attack. A colossal fire mass erupts overhead as Sully unleashes her inferno toward the charging beast. A blazing explosion erupts as Sully unleashes her fiery magic against the black beast. The monstrous creature was swept away, screaming as flames consumed it. The battlefield burns with raging fire as a towering stone monument glows with a fiery light. A glowing emblem with a pink core shines brightly, wrapped in fiery patterns. Sully collapses to the ground, exhausted yet relieved, as smoke billows behind her. Buru stands proudly with hands on his hips, praising her achievement. Sully sits stunned on the ground, eyes widening at his words. She smiles awkwardly, admitting it might not matter since no one from the academy saw it. She laughs and says others will probably think her story is false. Standing together before the monument, the two look on as Buru admits her point might be true. Buru smirks confidently, declaring that her evaluation will undoubtedly change. The monument glows and trembles, signaling a shift as the two watch in surprise. He explains that the towering device channels unique magical power directly into the academy. He then explains that transferred magic reveals the user's traits and identifies who completed the task. Sully stares wide-eyed while Buru turns with a casual smile, realizing the device can expose who truly did it. With the monument blazing behind him, Buru grins and wonders what becomes of a device struck by special class magic. Sully recoils in panic, grasping that the power she infused would be sent to the academy. Buru gestures with a confident smile, confirming her realization. The stone monument with a red ring cracks as power surges outward. A colossal fireball emerged from the monument, blasting the stone structure apart as debris flies. The shockwave sweeps Sully and Buru through the air, her face contorted in fright while he wears an excited smile. A roaring pillar of flame erupts from the monument as distant students look up and Sully panics about the aftermath. The instructor looms in shadow, calling out to Sully by name. In the courtyard, Sully flusters with hands raised while Buru stands nearby suppressing his laugh as the instructor approaches. The instructor's gleaming glasses signal stern judgment. Beside the cracked monument, the instructor scolds furiously while Buru laughs hard and Sully cries in apology. The instructor sighs, musing about how the legendary magic sword saint would react. On the plaza tiles, Sully sits with tears in her eyes while Buru answers lightly with a laugh and the instructor questions his certainty. The instructor acknowledges the task's completion and notes that the received magic power proves success. His gaze landed on Sully as he asked if it was from her. Sully brightens with wide, hopeful eyes as she nods cheerfully. The instructor addresses Sully, likening the situation to what happened at Buru. Sully and Buru stand side by side while the instructor remarks that she was labeled a failure not long ago and asks what changed. Buru confidently says Sully herself has not really changed. With the academy buildings behind them, Buru adds that only he recognized Sully's hidden talent. The instructor studies Buru warily and asks who he actually is. Buru flinches as the instructor steps toward him with a stern face. Grinning and leaning close to the instructor, Buru explains he got the same task as Sully, but could not channel magic because the device shattered, even wondering about compensation. The instructor dismisses the need and declares Buru exempt from the task, making him step back in disappointment. Touching his temple, the instructor wonders aloud what would happen if he assigned Buru the task. The plaza stretches wide as he concludes Buru would surely destroy the monument, realizing that the two were now gone. Beneath the damaged monument, the instructor shouts after them while Buru leads Sully away to check the rumors around campus. Buru was tugging Sully along as they ran away, while the instructor slumped in exhaustion. Two girls whisper that the person who defeated the academy's monster had enormous magic, while Beru stretches and Selly fidgets nearby. The gossipers point towards Selly, who shrinks in embarrassment as they recall she scorched the monument. Under a bright archway, students mill about campus and their good reputation begins to spread. Selly beams and blushes beside a thoughtful Beru and mentions feeling a bit out of place. Beru reacts cheerfully while asking her. Beru and Selly turn toward a noisy cluster of students gathered ahead, wondering about the commotion. A figure's polished shoes stride down the path as admiring girls watch from the sides with sparkles. The newcomer's uniformed torso and sword at his hip fill the frame, while onlookers swoon behind him. A white-haired student confidently approaches and asks if Beru is the one named Dre. The three of them stand surrounded by curious classmates as Beru acknowledges his query. Selly hurriedly whispers to Beru and explains that the newcomer is a famed genius swordsman while Beru sets that aside. She then calls him a famous prodigy. Hand to chest, the white-haired student politely introduces himself as Flem, a third year from the swordsmanship department. With his eyes briefly closed, Flem notes there is a complicated circumstance. He extends a gloved hand toward Beru and requests a friendly spar, while Beru's brows furrowed upon hearing it. Smiling confidently, Flem reaches out while recognizing Beru as the much-talked-about mage who saved the academy. Flem approaches them, asking Beru to spar and acknowledging him as the widely talked-about figure. Beru stares with a doubtful look and questions the request. In the courtyard among watching students, Flem explains that the Supreme Swordsmanship Society is concerned about the monster attack and interested in the one who saved the academy. He recalls Beru before a wall of fire and flying shapes as the mage who defeated the monsters. Flem's serious expression conveys that he was ordered to prove his side's capability. He rubs his head awkwardly and remarks that the people behind him only care about preserving authority. Beru falls silent as his brows furrowed, while Selly watches him closely, with students reacting around them. Beru raises a finger as Selly tugs his sleeve in shock upon hearing him ask what the Supreme Swordsmanship Society is. Standing behind him, Selly hesitantly asks if she may explain. Facing forward, she says the Supreme Swordsmanship Society and the Central Magic Institute are the two institutions supporting the country. An emblem of crossed swords appears above a lineup of varied swordsmen as she describes the organization uniting the nation's sword users. A red crest with twin staves hovers above robed and masked magic users as she identifies the body overseeing mages. A robed man and an armored man glare at each other amid swirling smoke, while she notes both groups wield great power and have been in long conflict. Selly leans toward Beru and explains the feud centers on claims of whether magic or swordsmanship is superior, calling the dispute foolish. Beru gestures and says the dispute just depends on circumstances, complaining they keep fighting over it while Selly agrees with him. Shown thoughtfully, Selly admits the rivalry between mages and swordsmen has worsened things. With uniformed students gathered behind him, Flem asks Beru again to spar. Flem winks with a hopeful smile and says it would help him save face if Beru agreed. Beru accepts the request, leaving Flem momentarily surprised. Beru thinks the match could gauge the current state of swordsmanship. He admits he can't expect too much when facing modern mages. Walking along the stone path, Beru asks Flem if he truly bears the title of genius swordsman. Flem smiles modestly and says it isn't anything grand, turning away with his sheathed sword at his hip. Flem adds he only practiced a bit more than others for about 3 days. Bathed in swirling mist, Flem declares that he simply loves swords. Selly leans toward Beru and whispers Flem is known around the academy as its strongest swordsman. As they stroll side by side, Selly warns that Beru should be careful around him. Beru smiles and tells her not to worry. With a confident grin, he told her not to worry. He smiled at her and said that her master ranks at the very top, beyond just the academy. Bullied Academy Arena rises under a clear sky. Inside the arena, Flem leads the way while Beru remarks that he didn't know such a place existed at the academy. From the sandy arena floor, Beru notices girls on the bleachers waving to get his attention. Selly beams and energetically calls out to him while raising her hand high. The group of uniformed girls cheer for Flem and plead for him to look their way, casting Selly aside. Beru awkwardly smiles as Flem heads into the equipment room, where a student offers practice weapons. Flem lifts a wooden sword and says Beru may use magic however he wants, prompting him to ask. Beru grabs his own wooden sword and asks if Flem intends to avoid magic, adding he isn't interested in using it either. With a confident grin, Beru suggests settling things with pure swordsmanship. Flem replies coolly that he heard Beru is a mage. Beru twirls the wooden blade and explains he can use magic, but doesn't really consider himself a mage. Flem narrows his eyes and acknowledges it with a brief response. Walking ahead toward the arena, Flem leaves while Beru mutters about his attitude. Beru startles with eyes widening as a thought strikes him. He reflects that people nowadays usually choose either magic or swordsmanship. Flem stands amid swirling energy with his wooden sword as Beru suspects. He looks down on those who choose magic. Beru remembers fighting monsters with sword techniques and worries he gave the wrong impression. Composed again, he declares pride in his swordsmanship and apologizes for the confusion. Flem watches quietly, his face calm and unreadable, Blue energy wraps around Baru as he vows that crossing swords will show the pride he carries. Wrapped in blue energy, Baru raises his wooden sword and demands that it be proven. Phlegm, eyes sharp against a violet haze, asked him to show his swordsmanship. The two face each other with auras swirling as Phlegm continues to show Baru's swordsmanship as for someone who also uses magic. Phlegm states they will begin on a count of 3. Baru then acknowledges the plan. Phlegm lowered into a ready stance as he started the countdown. The girls on the bleachers react excitedly while Sully watches wide-eyed. Baru steadies his gaze as the countdown ends. A foot kicks off the dusty ground, leaving wind streaks behind. Phlegm charges forward, blue eyes blazing beside a burst of light. He slams down with a wooden blade as Baru blocks, sending shockwaves and purple bursts across the arena. Airborne with debris flicking past, Phlegm exclaims that his blow was blocked. Amid sweeping arcs of force, Baru's counter makes Phlegm admit his attack was halted. Their wooden swords grind to a halt between them as Phlegm says the strike has been completely stopped. Phlegm tightens his stance and says he'll follow up. He unleashes wide glowing slashes that crisscross the arena, challenging Baru with a fiercer assault. Baru stands steady on a cracked, dust-filled floor with calm focus and raised blade. Phlegm stares wide-eyed and stammers in disbelief. Facing Baru across the ring, Phlegm acknowledges his refined skill and notes that he also wields magic. Phlegm dashes in while he's drawing a conclusion and preparing another swing. He lifts the wooden blade overhead with a fierce glare, ready to strike. Phlegm slips past as a blue arc whips by Baru's side. Phlegm staggers and looks back with a pained, sweaty expression. As an ethereal image of an armored hero and another vision of Baru hover above, Phlegm compares Baru's unstoppable presence to a legendary magic sword saint. Baru smiles and tells Phlegm he isn't bad, while Phlegm braces himself on one knee. Baru raises a splintered piece of his wooden sword as fragments fall, saying this fight feels the best he's had in a while. A shattered wooden hilt spins through the arena air with splinters flying as Baru announces that from here on things escalate. He stands amid scattered fragments and reaches upward toward a falling shard with a steady gaze. Wreathed in blue energy, Baru grins and clenches his fist, declaring that there will be no holding back and they should go all in. Baru smiled with quiet confidence as he pointed his finger to cast his magic. A swirl of greenish mana encircled around the wooden sword, which is now under his telekinetic powers. Baru wasted no time and immediately hurled this sword towards him. He flashed a wide grin as he caught the hilt of the wooden sword, urging for them to continue. Phlegm was seemingly dissatisfied upon seeing him treat it as if it was just a warm-up. A thick and dense amount of mana enveloped Baru as he looked forward to having an enjoyable match. He kicked off the ground and left dust and debris scattering around, instantly closing the distance between them with a vicious grin. He swung his sword with utter force, enough to send the sword genius away. He wasn't finished and followed up with more slashes, the shockwaves scattering all around the arena. Phlegm gritted his teeth as he braced for an attack he was expecting to come from his right side, only to be told by Baru that he was actually aiming from the opposite side. He kicked off the ground with utter force, swinging his sword against the shaken Phlegm. The genius swordsman was seen sweating, which is not strange as he's up against the legendary magic sword saint. The two of them then crossed their swords for another clash, kicking dust and debris all around the arena. Phlegm was having a hard time blocking Baru's attacks as he clenched his teeth. The magic sword saint in Dre's body remarked on Phlegm's tenacity despite him not holding back. He continued swinging his sword to test the so-called sword genius of this age. He leaped and planned a sneak attack, while Baru deemed him comparable to the great swordsman of his age. Phlegm was actually talented enough to make him struggle inside Dre's weak body. Meanwhile, the avid cheerers from earlier, including Sully, all fell silent in awe of their duel. Baru looked at his wooden sword, noticing a small crack on its blade. He raised it up and remarked on it being too fragile. Phlegm responded and said that his attacks were just too strong. Phlegm stands with a wooden sword and says he needs to apologize to Baru. With a stern expression, Phlegm admits the swordsmanship before him is genuine and apologizes for doubting it. Grinning, Baru tells Phlegm he finds his conscientious nature agreeable. Phlegm relaxes slightly and thanks him. Baru raises his hand and says that after crossing swords seriously, Phlegm can address him by name. Phlegm smiles awkwardly while blue energy flares around Baru and calls him an intimidating junior. Phlegm steadies his wooden sword and says he understands. He raises his voice to Baru, proposing they finish the bout before the practice blade gives out. Baru flashes a confident smile and says that is exactly what he wants, addressing his senior. The two face each other across the arena floor, with wooden swords ready. Power surges around Phlegm's blade as he declares he will fight with everything he has. Phlegm unleashes his secret technique, sending sweeping violet slashes across the arena. The ground erupts with streaking purple arcs and flying debris. The attack blossoms into a blinding burst shaped like layered petals of light. Baru stands firm before the writhing lattice of violet trails and remarks that it surpasses student level. He suddenly sprints forward, kicking up dust despite the oncoming barrage. Multiple afterimages of Baru weave through the purple mesh as he pushes on, determined to read the attack. Baru surges forward through violet trails with a fierce glare and his wooden sword ready. Twin white streaks scrape the dusty ground beside his wooden sword. Buru drives his practiced blade toward Flem's neck as the two stare each other down. Grinning sharply, Buru admits he can't claim the Sword Saint title. Flem steps back with one hand raised and repeats the title thoughtfully as his wooden sword fell. Fragments of a wooden sword scatter across the arena floor. Flem smiles wearily with sweat beading and says he has faced a Sword Saint. Buru plants a hand on his hip while Selly rushes in and cheering his effort while he was about to thank her, he was suddenly cut off. The cheering girl students cried out for Flem with excitement as Buru stumbles in surprise. A crowd swarms Flem with praise while he lifts both hands modestly. Watching from the side, Buru and Selly share awkward and amused expressions. Flem turning to wave to the girls while Buru and Selly stand in the distance. Flem offered his hand and thanked Buru and called the duel a good match. Buru accepted Flem's hand while returning the acknowledgement. Flem looks at him as Buru brings up orders from a swordsmanship society to defeat him. Smiling wryly, Flem remarks that the Supreme Swordsmanship Society will be upset if news spreads that he lost in swordplay to a magic user. Flem lifts both hands with a rueful smile, saying he may even be expelled from the Swordsmanship Society. Buru rubs his head and remarks that stoking conflict between magic and swordplay is foolish. Selly appears as a purple silhouette shrouded in gloom, wondering what Buru is planning. Grinning brightly, Buru announces he'll make it himself while Selly yelps in alarm beside him. From across the arena, Flem asks what he will create and Buru answers that it's a faction as Selly doubles over. Flem's eyes widen and he voices a startled reaction. Buru's confident smile accompanies his line that mage or swordsman doesn't matter for a new faction. Bathed in radiant light, Buru stands proudly between Flem and Selly and vows to be the one to create it. Morning light pours through a dorm window onto a sleeping boy while bird chirp sounds drift outside. Buru blinks awake on the pillow, rubbing his forehead with a drowsy murmur. He sits up in a sparse, sunlit room and stretches beside the bright window. At the sink, he studies his reflection and notes that days have passed since taking over Dre's body. Shrugging into his uniform coat, he observes there's still no sign of Dre's soul and readies for a new day. Seated on a park bench, he munches on bread and begins a hesitant thought. Under a wide blue sky, he reflects on the flurry of events since waking after a millennium while crumpling the wrapper in his hand. Wandering a school hallway lined with doors, he admits that even finding his own room was a hassle. On the campus path, uniformed students bustle about as he notes that classes resume. Wearing a steady look, he recalls Selly's account of what has happened since occupying Dre's body. A grand academy building and crystal spire frame his resolve to probe violent monster mutations and plan quick countermeasures. Moving through the crowd with nasty looks, he decides the mages and swordsmen of this era must train together from scratch to face vicious monsters. Passing columned walls while others were talking about him, he concludes that the feud between magic and swordsmanship only hinders that goal. He looks uneasy while adding that there is a catch. Rumors swirl from surrounding students about frightening repercussions and offending teachers as he stands stiff among dark silhouettes. Wearing a crooked smile with sweat on his cheek, he wonders if he made a bad move. In the tiered classroom, Selly spots him and greets with a wave. She offers the empty seat while he sets down his briefcase and returns a greeting. The lecture hall fills with whispers as the two sit together. His classmates dismiss his conflict-free faction idea as impossible while his weary face sags. He suddenly bellows across the room, jolting nearby students. Pointing with irritation, he scolds the chatterers for being noisy. Back beside Selly, he folds his arms with a huff while she laughs it off. She thought of him posing between two tall banners welcoming mages and swordsmen and proclaiming a new faction without opposition. While she remarks that his methods stood out, resting his cheek on his hand, he shrugs that even so he's unfazed. A teacher carrying a stack of books steps to the front and comments that the room is quite crowded. The same teacher, smiling with an open book, announces that suspended classes resume today. Seated with books open, he barely notes that several days were needed for the monster attack chaos to settle. The smiling instructor encourages everyone to work hard to make up for the delay. He traces glowing blue runes in the air while introducing a lesson tied to status. Gesturing upward, the instructor explains a topic centered on two major organizations. Students sit across the tiers as Buru reacts wearily to that topic, while Selly was secretly laughing. Looking at a softly glowing book, the instructor says a brief review comes first. A translucent image of a Grand Institute building appears as he describes mage affiliation. An elderly mage brandishes a staff before the institute while words note that affiliated mages have their talents recognized. Surrounded by children and glittering rewards, the mage is shown receiving generous treatment from the nation. Sitting together, the instructor notes the same applies to swordsmen as he murmurs understanding. From the front of the hall, the instructor addresses the rouse while notes emphasize that mage and swordsmen hold high status as people fear being expelled from their affiliated organization. Outside the academy, he and Selly stand between recruiting banners as onlookers gather and statements announce he hasn't given up. He turns to Selly and wonders if her helping is acceptable. With a firm stare, he warns that helping would draw attention from the Central Institute. She smiles softly and assures she will be fine. Blushing with a hand to her chest, she would supposedly drop out if it wasn't for Buru. She averted her gaze and said that she would have been expelled as a dropout anyway if not for him. She then happily declared that she'll follow the master she believes into the ends of the earth, touching Baru. She then put on a worried look as she averted her gaze, saying she's more worried about him. It turns out that Flem was also there to join the faction that he was creating. She then turned to him and warned him that his position might be in danger if he was seen hanging out with them. Flem flashed a reassuring smile and thanked her for worrying, then told her it was okay. He added that he was not fond of being bound by authority, and that he is in a position to support Dre. He probably won't escape punishment anyway, so he thought that he might as well do as he pleases. Baru chimed in, saying that they can't do anything with just the three of them. He then happily suggested that Flem persuade his fangirls and bring them along, to which Sully told him that it won't do as they need to recruit more carefully. Flem chuckled at the sight of Baru getting scolded by Sully for proposing his idea. Then, a man stepped in and called them out, prompting the three of them to turn around. Baru thought that there finally were students wanting to join his faction, but he was utterly mistaken. It was a group of seemingly high-level mages, far from the level of a measly student mage. The leader then threw dagger stares at him as he spoke with authority and command, saying that their actions were deemed to have a negative influence on the academy. He then revealed that they were to escort the three of them as the principal was calling for them. One woman from their group grabbed Sully and made her panic, prompting Baru to urge her to calm down. The mages who came to escort Flem were seemingly hesitant as he was an honor student. Baru then heaved an exasperated sigh and said it was a good opportunity. He obediently complied as the mages began escorting him inside the academy. With a wide grin on his face, he was looking forward to seeing the face of this academy's top. Sunlight streams through the office window as the three of them and staff face the stern elder seated behind a large desk amid banners and bookshelves. Baru strides forward with a steady look while Flem remains cool and Sully reacts in fear. The bearded elder thanks everyone for coming, fingers resting near a jeweled ring. Still seated with clasped hands, he introduces himself as Rudo. He states that he is the principal of Bullied Academy while gazing intently at them. A view of his gem-studded hands accompanies Baru remarking that the principal is a mage. Baru addresses the desk, asking whether Rudo is dissatisfied with his activities while teachers watch. A sharp-tongued instructor in a white coat snaps at Baru to stop his disrespect. Rudo raises a calming hand and the instructor stiffens with sweat on his brow. He acknowledges that magic and swordsmanship currently stand opposed and urges them to look carefully. A glowing scale fills the hall as he explains the two faculties keep a delicate balance to preserve peace. His narrowed eye warns that their activities could break that peace. Facing the trio, he declares that in the academy and by extension the world, they are dangerous elements. Baru lets out a quiet and amused breath, his mouth curling upward. Wearing a confident grin, he dismisses the warning as ridiculous. Baru tells the gathered faculty that magic and swordsmanship are merely tools for protecting what matters as Rudo watches from his desk. Flem listens with a faint, confident smile while the notion of replacing tools with authority is raised. Sully looks startled as the idea of being bound by that authority is mentioned. Baru declares passionately that such binding is meaningless, his uniform catching shards of light. Two teachers erupt in anger at his words, faces tense and accusatory. Rudo touches his beard and jeweled rings, weighing the situation in silence. Rapid footsteps drum toward the office doors. A panicked student bursts in and cries for attention. The room turns toward the intruder, and a staff member challenges the first year's interruption while the student is panting for his breath. The breathless student reports that classmates in the swamp outside the academy are under attack by a huge monster. Shock ripples through the staff as the principal reacts sharply. Shaking and clutching his head, the student says he barely escaped while Sully watches anxiously. A memory shows students and teachers fleeing through a swamp as a towering, shadowy creature advances. Desperate, the student pleads for someone to help those still there. Without hesitation, Baru strides for the exit as a staff member yelps in alarm. The strict instructor demands to know his destination while Rudo sits behind him. Baru glances back and asks rhetorically where else he would go. He states that he is heading out to save the first-year students as teachers stare after him in surprise. Sully brightens and happily calls out to Baru. Flem smirks with a soft scoff, noting that this is typical of Baru. The stern instructor declares that experienced teachers will handle the rescue and says Baru would only get in the way. Baru asserts that no teacher here is stronger than him and that he should go. The instructor yells at him to stop being arrogant and orders him to stay and reflect. Baru calls after him while he rubs his head, calm and unbothered. Baru coolly challenges the idea that authority matters more than students' lives as blue energy gathers around him. Eyes blazing, Baru declares the instructor unfit to teach. The instructor freezes with a shocked, speechless look. A robed elder steps forward, saying he understands that feeling all too well. The bespectacled elder drapes an arm over Baru's shoulder and admits irritation at the boy's attitude. He adds that regardless, he will vouch for Baru, which made them all shock. With eagerness, he calls him the strongest in the academy, leaving Baru wide-eyed in surprise. His eyes narrowed as he stresses that Baru surpasses even the teachers present. Faculty react across the room, while Rudo watches from his desk and Baru stands with Sully. A female teacher protests and called the robed elder Professor Rama. She was in disbelief as others look on. Rudo asks whether that statement includes him as well. With his eyes narrowed and glowing, he demands confirmation. With his brows furrowed, Rama replies that it most likely does. Rudo grips the desk with ringed fingers and resolves that only one course of action remains. The four of them all jolted in surprise upon witnessing something. Rudo bows deeply and asks Buru to rescue the first-year students, saying he is relying on him. The strict instructor shouts toward Rudo in utter surprise while Rudo stays bent near the desk. Face heavy with concern, Rudo explains that monsters have recently begun showing abnormal power. Turning to the trio, he says their strength is needed and calls Buru by his full name, leaving the three of them in shock. Buru scratches his head and remarks that he thought that Rudo disliked him. Stroking his beard and rings, Rudo answers that he had only spoken in general as the head of the academy. With a light wink and a gentler smile, he adds that he never claimed a personal dislike for Buru. Sully brightens while Buru and Flem smile, encouraged by the principal's stance. Rudo promises to send combat-capable teachers after them and urges Buru not to overexert himself. Buru replies with confident acceptance. The three of them dash out through the open doors, speed lines trailing behind them. The remaining teachers stand stunned while Rama sighs amid the tense room and Rudo smiles, proudly watching them leave. The instructor addresses Rudo while he reflects that the divide between magic and swordplay should soon be lifted. As a rainbow arc glows overhead, Rudo watches the trio run and recalls an age of a legendary magic sword saint. A barren tree towers over a misty swamp beneath dense gray clouds. Green water churns with bubbles while a pair of predating eyes glow under the surface, indicative of the looming danger. A misty lakeshore sits under a clouded night sky while small bubbles dimple the dark water. A boot skids through dirt, flinging grit as someone dashes forward. Buru charges across the barren field with Flem and Sully sprinting close behind beneath leafless trees. At the water's edge, Flem speaks about a giant attacker while Buru scans the ground intently. They halt before a trail of colossal footprints sunken in mud, and Sully huffs at the side as the path points their way. Sully wipes her sweat and staggers while the nearby pool churns with a bubbling sound. Buru slides his sword from its sheath, posture tightening for a fight. A hulking shadow with glowing violet eyes rises from behind Sully as streaks of motion slice the scene. Several purple-eyed amphibious foes erupt upward, brandishing spears and blades with jagged grins. A splash bursts beside Sully, who turns wide-eyed in alarm. Buru cleaves through lunging limbs while reminding Flem not to let his guard down as Sully recoils on the ground. Flem answers with steady resolve as he slashes the monster in front of him. Screeching fishmen charge from the shore, one slashing a sword toward the group. The trio sets their stance together on the bank while more scaled attackers surge from the water. Flem meets a fisherman's swing with a steady parry and an unblinking stare. A purple streak slashes tears across the monsters, pitching scaled attackers backward. He sets both hands on his hilt, and with a brief apology, gathers winded momentum around him. Twin radiant arcs cross before him, blasting fishmen and their limbs outward. Eyes sharpened, he remarks that he can't stay here long. Buru and Sully watch in awe and praise his skill, expecting it from the genius swordsman. Smiling modestly, he asks them not to use that lofty title and claims Buru's swordplay surpasses his. A spear-wielding fishman erupts from the splashing water, shrieking as it charges. Flem's narrowed eye glints as he adds a terse qualifier. He stood confidently and whirls in a luminous circle as his foe tumbled away. With a gentle smile, he promises to do everything he can for the academy students. Buru calls out to Sully while she looks up expectantly. The pair joke about how cool he is as he stands behind them with a bashful grin. Buru turns serious, insisting this isn't the time for jokes. Following giant footprints, the trio sprint toward a misty ravine and urge haste to find the students. A sweeping view of the foggy wetlands frames. While running to find the student, Buru was concerned that first year's training occurred there and facing that monster would be too much for ordinary students. Flem looked at him and explained that the swamp holds a rare miracle water. Weapons and armor swirl in radiant currents as he notes the water makes crafted items markedly better. He revealed that two teams of first years, swordsmen on one side and mage on the other, are competing to gather more of the special water. Flem and Buru trade remarks, with the latter admitting he might have been absent for that event. A narrow rock corridor under a cloudy sky appears while it said teachers usually direct searches near the swamp entrance. Running through the ravine, the two of them comment that first years often venture too deep, which is normally fine. The trio sprints across open ground as a scaled figure watches, while stating that this time the students met ferocious monsters. Several purple-eyed fishmen leap down the cliff with weapons raised, screeching. A mass of fishmen floods the canyon. Rows of snarling fishmen crowd the path with their eyes glowing. Sully calls Buru and cries that the number is overwhelming. Buru charges ahead with determination while Flem warns him that his plan is reckless. He dashes forward with a confident grin, holding his sword as blue energy flares around him. He leapt forward and slashed the monsters that were on their path. A surge of power bursts from his sword as he slashes through the surrounding monsters. He raises his glowing hand toward an approaching creature with purple eyes, and a massive explosion of golden lightning erupts, blasting back the monsters. Smoke and crackling electricity linger in the aftermath as the surviving monsters look on in fear. While he spins through the air, cutting down the enemies that surround him. With fierce focus, he swings his sword downward in a powerful strike against the monsters as one of the creatures snarls angrily and prepares to counterattack. He flips upside down midair, pressing his hand onto a glowing blue magic circle as monsters gather below, and a monster recoils in shock as icy spikes erupt from the ground. Jagged pillars of ice rise and impale the monsters, while the Buru lands firmly with a hardened expression. Flem smiles confidently while Sully looks shocked as they stand together. A fiery blaze engulfs Buru's sword as monsters rush toward him. Surrounded by flames, Buru lifts his sword high and charges with fierce determination. A massive fiery explosion bursts outward, consuming everything in its path. Buru stands before the scorched battlefield with flames still burning around him. Buru sheathes his sword with a relieved expression as Flem and Sully approach from behind. He then turns with a bright grin, asking if they can now move forward. A dark mist swirls above as two frightened students run while screaming for help. A towering figure with glowing green eyes slams down, scattering water and sending the students flying. The massive figure looms with its glowing eyes and horned mast, exuding a menacing presence. The creature lets out a deafening roar, shaking the surroundings with its fury. A rocky ravine with leafless trees shudders as rumbling sweeps across the dark sky. Three uniformed students run through swirling dust, one gripping a staff while panting hard. A frightened boy looks back while a girl stares ahead wide-eyed, shouting about a giant and urging others to look. The group reaches a circular cliff wall, dotted with small pools, and realizes they are trapped with no way out. A massive barefoot slams down behind the scared staff bearer. The students stumble as their legs quake in fear, while the staff bearer looks behind. A hulking figure with a wooden mask and glowing green eyes towers over them, making them scream in fear, while the girl below trembles in denial as the monster leans forward. The girl screams as the giant's enormous weapon descends toward him, but Buru rushes in and meets the blow with his sword, blue sparks bursting on impact as the students flinch. The students stare upward in shock while the masked creature grins with luminous eyes. Buru faces the looming giant with his blade in hand and tells it that it is getting too wild. Sully steadies a bandaged classmate while others help the wounded in the ravine and notes those from the swamp suffered only minor injuries. While grinning, Buru lifts his blades and says they just need to deal with the culprit to finish the matter. The masked giant roars with glowing green eyes and a toothy grin. The monster then hammers down as Buru deflects with flashing steel and a shockwave of debris. Two students watch wide-eyed and remark that he is easily turning aside the giant's attacks. The boastful boy laughs that swordsman trump mages here, while the two students look in annoyance. Breathing hard, Buru swings once more. The giant looms to strike. He faces the students and lowers his weapon with a metallic clack while nearby students sweat. Buru rebukes the smug boy, dismissing his claim, and the smug boy looks baffled and mutters in confusion. A massive weapon tears toward the group as Buru declares that swordsmanship or magic makes no difference. A shimmering barrier erupts as he raises one arm to halt the charging giant. With a sharp look, he explains that what matters is solving the problem with whatever is at hand. The surrounding students recoil in shock and cry out that he used magic. Standing before the glowing barrier, he says inexperience is more reason to combine blades and magic. Pointing at the loud boy, he orders him to listen and promises to teach cooperative fighting while telling him to learn skills before acting like a leader. Buru gestures toward the shimmering barrier that holds back the green-eyed giant as he calls out Flem and leaves the fight on him. Flem darts behind the monster with a fierce stare. He streaks past the towering giant, blades and motion lines cutting through the air as the monster swings, his eyes sharpened in focus. While the giant recoiled with red slashes across its body, the giant drives a heavy blow downward and Flem strains to hold it off with a pained grunt. Flem then skids beside a puddle, while Buru tells the watching group that even a prodigy struggles to evade the giant's attacks. He snaps his fingers and says that help from magic will change the situation. A glowing purple ring binds the giant's waist as power gathers. The restrained monster roars while he explains that limiting its movement is the plan. With the restraints swirling around the monster, Flem slips to the giant's side and begins a secret technique. Wrapped in a burst of violet energy, he unleashes his infinite flash technique and rapid strikes swirled around him. The giant strains against the restraint as the purple slashes swirl around its body while Buru explains to the group that this is how they make an opening. The towering monster is nicked with red lines, then water erupts in a wide splash as the toppled giant hits the swamp and Flem stands poised with his sword. Sully runs towards them and reports that the injured are treated and evacuation has begun. Buru acknowledges her with a relaxed smile while Flem exhales in relief and urges them to head back soon. Looking uneasy, Sully asks if the fallen being is the rumored giant. With the monster's face in the foreground, the group listens as she says its two clubs reminded her of something. Touching her chin, she brings up a local legend about the swamp, and a mist giant holding two massive clubs amid simple desert motifs. Buru repeats the name thoughtfully while considering her words, and she continues that this mist giant was reputed to be an untouchable tyrant of the swamp. Buru glances at Flem and observes that today's foes seem to fall surprisingly easily. Suddenly, a club rises through swirling violet energy. Startled, the trio flinch in shock upon witnessing it, and purple shockwaves erupt as the giant surges back up and Baru warns everyone that something is wrong and to stay careful. The masked giant grimaces with a glowing green eye as violet energy crackles with both wooden clubs lift together, wrapped in a surge of purple aura. The giant barrels forward inside a swelling violet wave that rips along the ground. The brown-haired girl gapes in alarm while another student sprints behind him, while the black-haired boy rushes forward, demanding to know what is happening. A column of mist bursts from the swamp as the glowing-eyed giant lies spread out on the water. The creature's wooden face tilts upward with circular eyes shining, and purple power gushes from its body as it rises and fog billows outward. A single red eye glares from a hole in the white mist with jagged purple lines around it, while phlegm covers his mouth, judging the haze harmless and wondering if it's only mist while two classmates flinch behind him. Lost in the fog, Selly says in alarm that she can't see while Baru warns the others to watch out. With an ominous cue, the red-eyed giant rockets toward Baru, purple aura blazing around its charge. It then unleashed a powerful attack against him, to which he struggled to block. He gritted his teeth as he looked forward to the enemy, visibly challenged in the duel. The monster stood before him ready for another confrontation as round 2 was about to begin. Gritting his teeth, Baru raises his blade against a crashing force of the monster's wooden club. The towering, red-eyed giant surges through a cloudburst while Baru braces with sword in hand. The grinning brute looms forward as Baru steadies himself amid flying debris. He narrows his eyes at the foe, noting that its movements have changed from earlier. Sword at the ready, he studies the hulking creature across a dust-filled clearing. The monster looked at him with purple aura, while Baru deemed it as the strongest he has faced in this era. Jagged teeth puff cold vapor as the creature exhales thick mist. A bloodshot red eye glares while a guttural growl swells. The giant slams down with a burst of purple energy, sending Baru skidding as he wonders if it's drawing strength from the mist. Rolling fog blankets the rocky valley while he concedes there are too many sources to halt. The wooden masked face peers through the haze with crazed, glowing eyes. The monster vanishes inside the mist as Baru stiffens in alarm. He announces that the giant is out of sight and urges caution, and Selly answers nervously while the others prepare behind him. Selly says she'll be careful as the grinning, mist-wreathed giant hurtles past behind her, jolting the student on her back. Baru thrusts out his hand to activate his build rock magic. It then slams directly into the giant's body, while the others flinch and brace themselves. Seizing the opening, Flem launches toward the blazing rupture on the giant's chest. Hanging in the air with his blade poised, he tells the creature to stop hunting his juniors. His sword cuts a bright arc across the monster's wooden face as he rushes by. The wounded giant roars and pounds the ground, and Flem steadies himself as tall veils of mist surge up around him. With his brows furrowed, he notes the foe has hidden again. While Baru identifies it as the mist giant of legend and Selly admits shock at encountering such a monster. Baru reflects on a long-lived beast that has recently begun rampaging with a sharp gaze. He then asks Selly how the tale describes it. Selly explains that the mist giant was feared as the swamp's tyrant and was believed to have been defeated by powerful mages. Standing amid fog, Baru says he's starting to understand, arguing the real giant differed from the story and likely barely survived. The grinning giant lies low as he deduces that it has been sleeping somewhere in the swamp. Baru speaks about the giant while ominous silhouettes of other fierce monsters loom behind him, deeming it related to the giant's awakening. Against a starry blue void, glowing eyes appear as he describes an ancient creature roused from a long sleep. With a bothered face, Baru admits he knows someone in a similar situation. Standing alone amid rolling fog, he names the magic sword saint who awoke after 1,000 years. He bursts into a sprint with a sword drawn, saying that he and the creature are alike. Rushing straight at the towering giant, he taunts that they are two of a kind. Teeth clenched, he drives a blazing strike while commenting that the monster's age explains its power. The giant lashes out and Baru is hurled back through a burst of blue force, earth cracking under the blow. The monster opens its mouth wide and sucks in thick streams of surrounding mist. Sprinting with sword in hand, Baru wonders why inhaling the mist boosts combatability. Selly rushes through the fog toward him, calling his name and saying there is something mixed with the mist. She points to a cracked spot where bright blue liquid gushes from the ground, identifying it as miracle water. Dashing forward, Baru recalls that tools made with miracle water perform better, as his senior once explained. Two nearby students watch tensely, while Baru comments that the substance doesn't seem to affect humans. Facing the purple-shrouded giant, Baru says the creature must be specially built to grow stronger by absorbing those components. Gritting his teeth, he says things might be different if he were in his original body. The giant barrels past in a blur while Baru admits that fighting as Dre is difficult. The monster's eyes flare in alarm. Flem sweeps in and carves a glowing twin slash, while Baru readies himself nearby. Flem calls out to ask if Baru is okay. Baru replies with an apology and asks Flem to keep the monster busy for a moment. Holding his sword upright as orange fire ignites along it, he announces he will use a trump card. Flames spiral across the ground, encircling him in a blazing ring. A massive, ornate gate with golden emblems rises behind him amid the roaring fire. With the mist cleared, Selly and classmates gape and identify the structure as a prominence gate. Striding before the open fiery doorway, Buru says this is a superior version of that magic. Buru gazes up amid embers and says that among special class magic, this one counts as a secret technique. A colossal figure of living flame erupts from the gate as he names the spell Prominence Advent. Selly jolts in shock, eyes wide and mouth open. Buru caught Flem's attention upon summoning it, while the giant lunged forward at him while Buru explained that Prominence Gate originally borrowed fire from another dimension. Under a rain of burning sparks, the giant looks forward while Flem evades from the battlefield as Buru states he has summoned a portion of that being. The blazing avatar dives toward the giant and Buru asserts that its appearance guarantees their victory. The wood-masked monster bellows, shrouded in a violent purple aura. Buru looks determined and says he's counting on the fiery ally. A vast incandescent hand materializes, glowing fingers stretching across the battlefield. The fire titan lunges in a torrent of flames as it slams its hand to the ground on his command to burn everything. A roaring blaze hand fills the battlefield while the hulking beast crouches defensively as Buru urges that everything be reduced to ashes. The red-eyed monster grimaces amid flying debris and licking flames. A colossal fiery hand slams into the ground, blasting sparks as it shattered the ground from its impact. Selly gawks as Flem watches with a smile, and below them another pair stare open-mouthed at the inferno. Smoke coils from a vast crater while Buru stands at the rim, surveying the result. He exhales with tired relief, admitting the situation was risky. He rubs his neck with a faint strained smile, deciding he needs to retrain his body. Hearing pounding footsteps, he turns with a puzzled look. Two classmates rush up, crowding him excitedly as he stumbles back. The two of them blurts out praise for the magic and swordplay they just witnessed. Facing them with his brows furrowed, he listens while they beg to learn how to fight like that. Buru seriously asks if they truly want the strength to battle monsters. Gripping her staff, the girl admits her current ability cannot defeat such creatures. Clenching a fist, the boy says he thought he could at least beat monsters and that the failure was frustrating. With rocky walls behind them, the first-year group faces Buru while the boy and the staff-wielding girl ask to be taught how to become stronger. A sly smile forms at the edge of Buru's face as he begins his reply. Hand on chin, he cheerfully offers a perfect faction and invites them to join. A bright academy courtyard with training dummies appears as a few days have passed. The short-haired girl concentrates as blue energy blooms around her open palms. She lashes blue streams toward a target with a sharp exclamation. Wearing a sleeveless top, the burly boy charges forward, gripping his sword with fierce focus. He sweeps a wide slash through a dummy, filling the air with swooshing arcs and a grunt. Peeking from behind a column, Buru observes with an approving smile. Standing beside Selly, he watches the busy yard and remarks that everyone is practicing properly again. Buru caught their attention as he thanked them for their hard work. Surrounded by classmates and playful beams of light, someone excitedly addresses Buru as a teacher and he looks amused. A student asks Selly about using special class magic while Selly awkwardly looked on while waving her hands, making Buru gaze at her proudly. Buru recalls that back in the rocky field, the gathered first years decided to join the new faction. Addressing them sternly, Buru explains that his faction forbids clashes between magic and swordsmanship and asks if they accepted that before joining. Uniformed students pump their fists and shout an enthusiastic affirmation. In the practice hall, Buru sits with arms crossed while two first years hold practice swords, reflecting that he has been teaching them for days. Resting his chin on his hand, he thinks it's worrying that teachers have stayed silent about the faction, and he recalls reporting the mist giant's defeat as nearby teachers wear displeased faces. While Rudo seems satisfied about his report and the students' new faction, in the courtyard, Flem approaches the startled seated Buru as Selly stands nearby. Flem told him that Rudo is summoning them in the office. After hearing it, Buru clutches his head while Selly bursts out in shock. Inside a sunlit office, the trio stands before Rudo seated at a large desk. Rudo's face went serious as he says teachers' opinions on the Buru's faction have been compiled, and Buru looks surprised at the newly coined name for their group. Facing the three of them, Rudo explains they named the group for convenience, while the trio reacts with mixed amusement and shock. With fingers interlaced, he declares his support for the Buru's faction. With a hard look and ringed hand near his mouth, he adds that many teachers dislike challenging existing norms. He then asks Buru to demonstrate his power again to the teachers. Selly speaks earnestly in the office, asserting that Buru defeated the mist giant in the swamp. She faces Rudo across his desk and insists his ability should already be proven. Rudo acknowledges Selly's opinion with a hand near his chin, while noting teachers did not see it firsthand. Shadowy figures float in purple haze while doubts appear that the giant was weak or that the students merely ran. Flem frowns beside bookshelves, calling those claims an insult to Buru. A ringed hand draws a glowing magic pattern while explaining a prepared strategy to stop such talk, as Rudo holds shimmering energy in his palm and vows to prevent that nonsense from returning. The three of them lean in to examine a cube-like magical device being offered as Rudo presents a recording tool. He then instructs them to capture the content he is about to explain so teachers will recognize Buru's faction. Buru stands resolute as Rudo asks if he can accept this. His eyes lowered as he gave a thoughtful hum. Smiling with a hand to his chest, He agrees to the request. The trio stands before the desk as Buru asks what he needs to do. A night scene of town buildings shows ominous red eyes while Rudo told them that a monster was damaged near the academy. He then points upward and assigns the mission, stressing that it must be resolved using only Buru's own power. The three of them are told companions may come, but only Buru is allowed to use his strength. Holding the cube, Rudo says the footage will leave the teachers with nothing to argue. Grinning and holding a reflective square device, he asks if they can accomplish it. Buru smiles with a glowing hand raised and says there's no problem. The cube-shaped magical device suddenly slips on Rudo's grip, leaving a bright streak as it flies. Buru catches the cube as green light radiates outward his hand. He confidently presents the cube toward view and states with a confident smile that he has done this kind of work for 1,000 years. The three of them walk a winding path through open fields toward distant mountains. Sully checks a small device with a worried look as the monster's damage has begun while they continue along the road. A shoe crunches onto charred ground scattered with debris. The three of them step into a burned district, moving cautiously through smoke and ash. Buru reacts grimly, eyes tightening at the sight ahead. They face a devastated town framed by mountains, ruins stretching beneath drifting embers. Flem scans the town with a wary and analytical look. Sully studies the wreckage, concern for the townsfolk evident. She mournfully surveys homes reduced to rubble beside blackened walls. Buru kneels and inspects a scorched shard amid the ashes. His eyes narrow as he gauges the power behind the destruction. Suddenly, a massive shadow engulfs the whole area, alerting the three of them. All three look upward in alarm at something approaching. A vast wing sweeps into view, the air rippling with turbulent light. A menacing dragon emerges, radiating purple energy as it descends and looks towards them. Sully stares upward in stunned awe, clutching her camera as she realizes that they actually exist. Buru draws his sword and steadies himself for battle while agreeing silently that it was indeed rare. The dragon dives close with burning eyes as dark energy smokes from its maw. A thunderous impact blooms into a huge dust cloud while the three of them braces at the perimeter. Power ripples around Buru as he readies his blade with fierce resolve. A griffin drops from above and crashes into the dragon, stunning Buru below. The two monsters spiral through the sky above the ruins as the three of them look on. Sully and Flem gape upward, alarm mixing with disbelief. Flem suddenly remembers a story of a griffin cherished by locals and honored with offerings for protecting them as if it was a deity. Buru watches the aerial clash as golden arcs trace the griffin's sweeping flight. Awe fills his gaze as he senses the guardian's wrath for the ruined town. The griffin rakes the dragon midair, feathers flaring while blood spatters across the sky. The griffin streaks across the sky while the dragon swivels with a baleful glare. Emerald currents coil as the griffin gathers wind around its body, preparing for an attack. With wings spread, the guardian unleashes a raging cyclone of green light. The dragon reels before the oncoming gale that surges like a comet. The Wiam answers with a flare from its maw as crimson power collides midair. The dragon lets out a massive crimson energy towards its opponent. A searing torrent of fire lances downward toward the griffin as it is sketched by the approaching attack. On the ground, Sully flinches as a column of azure energy erupts nearby. A sleek spear of blue energy rockets skyward bearing a lone figure toward the fray. A shimmering sphere of shield blooms around Buru and the griffin, stalling the dragon's violent assault. Buru steadies himself within the barrier, poised to fight alongside the guardian. Buru hovers in the sky confronting the glaring dragon for hurting the humans. He lunges forward wreathed in blue power with his blade drawn, swearing to show no mercy on the dragon. A flashing arc carves through the dragon as Buru's strike trails crimson. Buru's lips parted in confidence. With the dragon's remains scattered below, Buru turns toward the distant guardian with a smile while informing it that he defeated its enemy. Buru's eyes widened in shock upon seeing something. A fresh bolt of burning malice plunges from above toward the grounded griffin. Buru dives in panic, reaching out as the attack bears down. The griffin staggers within a storm of flames and smoke around its body. He shouted and watched a fiery mass crash earthward as the guardian fell. Buru gritted his teeth in rage due to the fallen guardian. More wyverns close in from the sky as Buru braces himself beneath them. Bathed in blue aura, he confronts the swarm with a burning question about their hatred for the griffin. His memories of the past flooded on his mind as a lone hero clashing with horned beasts while regret flooded the scene. Rain-drenched recollection lingers on his bloodied self lying motionless. In the dark void, Buru's face tightens as buried anger resurfaces. Power flares around him in blue and crimson, stiffening his resolve after remembering the unpleasant memories he has. A blazing aura blossoms outward, while wyverns circle at the edge of the shockwave. Sully stares up while holding the camera, astonished by his transformed presence. The wyverns charge crackling orbs of energy in their mouths. Their combined volley erupts into a red-black explosion that devours the sky. Sully and Flem on the ground look up in alarm as the storm of light descends. Buru advances through swirling darkness, his silhouette radiating cold menace. He dives from the sky like a blazing blue spear. The wyverns wheel and tense as the luminous descent bears down on them. Wreathed in azure aura, Buru lunges with his sword ready to cleave through the swarm. Buru cleaves downward in a rush of blue light while an azure aura looms behind him. He lunged forward the wyvern and slashed through its body. The wyvern screams as purple force rips through it and blood sprays. Buru hovers wreathed in blue energy with his sword drawn, while the wounded dragon tumbles and bleeds below. He watches the sky calmly as a flying dragon approaches behind him. Another dragon surges forward with glowing red eyes amid streaks of purple motion. Power ripples around Buru as he says there are 2 left. A dragon banks through swirling clouds and unleashes a long red breath beam. As the dragon spews fire, Buru darts past its neck with his blade ready. Buru gathers dark violet energy between his hands and summons a special class spell. His special life crash spell erupts in a wide violet ring beneath Buru. The wyvern slams into the ground, leaving a deep crater rimmed with swirling purple energy and shattered stone. A battered black dragon sprawls in a cracked crater while steam drifts over blood-stained rock. Another dragon streaks upward toward a distant, blue-glowing Buru in the sky. Buru closes his eyes with calm focus as energy ripples around him. The dragon lunges at Buru with jaws wide while blue power flickers around his body, readying his sword. Buru opens his eyes with fierce resolve. He gathers a brilliant blue mass at his hilt and uses an ultimate sword technique. Buru drives a blazing sphere forward, blasting into the dragon's head. The dragon was cut in half as he activated his instant life annihilation technique. He finishes in a sweeping stance while the dragon recoils. Buru stands wreathed in fading aura as a broken dragon falls behind him over distant hills. Flem and Sully watch with tense faces and remark that Buru's anger-fueled power is almost frightening. Sully gulps and says she's glad he is an ally rather than an enemy. Buru is now surrounded by towering blue-black flames, cloak stirring in the surge. He dashes across the open sky above rolling mountains with his sword at his side. A forest clearing below shows toppled logs and scattered debris. Buru lands among ruined battlements as Selly and Flem run toward him calling his name. Selly raises a crystal device and says she has perfectly recorded the battle with the dragon species while Flem stands beside her. Buru looks puzzled and asks if the battle was recorded. Scratching his head beside Selly, he acknowledges that had been the objective while Selly commented that the griffin's fate is unfortunate. Buru looks out over the mountains and calls to Selly and Flem. With Flem and Selly approaching, he says there's a place he wants to visit before returning. Buru explains he wants to say goodbye to the griffin. Smiling gently, Buru asks the 2 of them to come with him. The massive green hills with a winding path and bright clouds were in front of them. In the forest, Buru touched the broken tree while Selly and Flem hurry after him, thinking that the griffin fell over that place. Buru's eye widens in sudden alarm. The 3 of them face a long drag mark leading deeper into the woods. Flem examines the soil while Selly watches, identifying it as a trail left by a dying griffin. Buru studies the mark and wonders where the fatally wounded creature went. Leaves drift across the bright as sunbeams pour through tall trees, while the 3 of them walk along the path. Buru reacts with shock as he spots something ahead. A massive hollowed tree with a nest and a large griffin looms over the path. Buru runs toward the nest, calling to the griffin. Buru skids to a halt, sweating and startled by what he sees. The griffin lies motionless in a straw-lined nest with beak parted and talons showing. Buru's lips curve faintly as he acknowledges understanding. Sunbeams bathe the nest where the griffin shelters an egg while Buru notes there was another reason to fight the dragons. A large pale egg rests against the griffin's feathers. Buru and Selly crouch eye the nest and recognize it as an egg. Buru lifts the egg carefully and remarks that it seems close to hatching. Hands on hips, Flem asks Buru what he plans to do as Buru grins with the egg. Beaming in radiant light, Buru raises the egg above his head and states he will raise it. Cradling the egg, Buru vows to protect the child while Flem stands behind among the trees. He then conveys his farewell and wishes for peace. The griffin rests in the nest as soft white feathers drift through the light. An orange sunset spreads over distant mountains and the forest canopy. In the woods at dusk, Flem was in awe while Buru smiles and carries the egg and Selly listens. Selly turns back with a gentle, appreciative smile in the evening glow. A lone stone marker with a single flower sits in a quiet clearing as feathers drift by. Meanwhile, a dragon streaks across the bright sky while Buru pursues, accompanied by a thoughtful hum. Ruta watches a blue projection from a cube and says the video will help convince the staff and formalize Buru's activities. Selly clasps her hands with sparkling eyes beside Flem, thrilled by the prospect. Across the office, Selly and Flem listen, while Ruto admits some won't be happy and calls it a challenge ahead. He glances over his shoulder and asks what happened to Buru. Startled, Selly tenses with a nervous smile while Flem stays composed beside her. Blushing, Selly explains that the griffin's egg is about to hatch and that Buru asked her to handle the report. In a tidy room, Buru sits near a cushioned nest where the large egg rests. Hearing a faint crack, Buru beams and leans toward the wobbling shell. Fractures spread across the egg in its basket as he encourages it to keep going. A blazing crack symbol flashes against darkness to signal the break. A fluffy griffin chick bursts from the shattered shell while Buru stares in wide-eyed shock. From an upper window of the stone building at dusk, Buru's jubilant announcement about the birth echoes out, startling someone below. The 3 of them sit in an outdoor cafe courtyard 5 days after the egg hatched, surrounded by students at metal tables. The 3 of them lean in over their table with determined faces, with Buru checking if they're ready. Biru sets a large wicker basket on the table while Flem and Selly watch closely. A hand lifts the soft lining inside the basket, and warm light glows from within. Selly stares wide-eyed as a fluffy white shape rises under the basket lid. Small dark talons touch down with an energetic hop. A fluffy tail tied with a bow wiggles briskly. A wing flicks open against a patterned backdrop. The round white hatchling beams amid sparkles and flowers, chirping happily. All three of them on the table, adoring the hatchling as it stands between them. The little creature stretches a wing while Biru clarifies it is the baby griffin from the egg. Cradling it, Biru speaks earnestly while the others smile. Flem studies the chick and remarks that its body already looks sturdy. Selly blissfully pets the relaxed hatchling on the tabletop. Biru explains with a grin that this griffin type develops quickly after birth. The puffball nibbles a fingertip, while Biru mentions early flight helping it evade threats. Biru added that it takes quite a while to reach adulthood as a mature griffin over rolling hills, while Flem signals understanding. Holding the hatchling toward Biru, Selly asks whether a name has been chosen. Biru scratches his head and admits he hasn't thought of a name yet. He folds his arms and thinks hard about naming the griffin, while the others watch across the cafe table. Against a dark aura, he mumbles goofy options, and Selly and the fluffy chick stare with flat expressions. Both boys blurt suggestions as Selly throws up a hand, urgently stopping them. Smiling, she asks to offer a name while the excited chick bounces and Biru agrees. A view of the academy building appears as the chick lets out its signature moo-like cry. The group notes that the little one has a distinctive call while Selly holds it up. Resting his cheek on his hand, Biru observes that the moo-like sound is unusual as the chick repeats it. Selly taps her chin and considers this unique trait. She brightens with the baby griffin and proposes the name Moma. Flem and Biru react gladly, approving the choice. Grinning, Biru lifts the chick skyward and proclaims its new name as it coos. Selly strokes the relaxed chick on the table and praises the result. A shimmering winged insect drifts nearby, catching the attention of Biru and the curious baby griffin. The crystalline butterfly sparkles in the air, while the griffin gazes up with shining eyes. The griffin suddenly darts off the table after the glittering insect as all three of them jolt in surprise. The three of them worriedly watch Moma wobble through the sky between tall academy buildings as a black boot steps onto a glowing green magic circle while energy swirls. Biru blasts upward on a trail of light, while Selly and Flem look up from the courtyard. He then chases Moma and a glimmering insect past a red brick building, calling for it to stop. A blinding pillar of light erupts near the rooftops as Moma flits by. Moma flaps clumsily beside a sparkling insect while Biru spins in midair behind them. Moma darts down a stone street, making uniformed students yelp and jump aside, while two students glance back as Biru warns to clear the path. Biru streaks past the crowd in a blue blur, pursuing the runaway Moma. Gritting his teeth mid-sprint and acknowledging this chase is quite a handful. The insect and Moma loop around a towering crystalline obelisk while Biru dives after them. He then thrusts out a shining hand, signaling he'll get serious and unleash advanced magic. A blazing golden lattice blossoms in the sky as Biru thrusts up his hand while it forms around the fleeing flyers. Moma looks alarmed as the radiant barrier crackles around it. Fissures spread through the glowing shell while Moma hovers in surprise. Moma then rockets forward, leaving a bright streak along the golden ring. With golden light around it, Moma bursts out through a gap, while Biru reacts with stunned disbelief. With a luminous orb hanging over the plaza, Moma sweeps past the obelisk as Biru pursues. Moma veers toward an open window while cooing. Biru rubs his head after a rough bump. He leans at the window and checks on the dazed Moma lying on the floor. Cradling the dizzy fluff ball, he admonishes it not to be reckless. His eyes soften as he adds a hesitant concession. While carrying Moma, he faces a stone hall's door etched with glowing red patterns and wonders what this place is. Studying the sigilled door, he remarks that it's advanced sealing magic for this era. His brows furrowed while his finger is playing with Moma, then considers Rudo as the likely caster. He lowers his lashes and exhales softly. Before the red sigil-covered door, Biru grins with his palm against it while Moma on his shoulder agrees that what lies beyond is intriguing. He presses a glowing hand to the runes, remarking that the sophistication of the magic doesn't matter to him. As blue motes scatter across the surface, he and Moma face the great doors, and he says it's as if they aren't locked at all. He then pulls the door open with an eager smile, wondering aloud what could be on the other side. Biru turns his head with Moma perched on his shoulder, alerted by something inside. Entering a dim room with framed objects and a starlight glint, he concludes he's found something worthwhile. Biru smiles with Moma on his shoulder, beginning a casual remark. He and Moma take in a dim room filled with framed relics and a glowing blue sword display, noting he has finally found it. Footsteps sound as a black boot strides across the floor, and he muses that it still exists in this era. While he and Moma study the blue glowing sword mounted on the wall, surprised it was kept at the academy. A hand reaches toward the sword's hilt behind the frame, but a stern Rudo appears, warning him not to touch it. Biru halts with his hand near the weapon and turns back in alarm with Moma clinging on, his tense mouth and a bead of sweat showing him asking in surprise. Rudo stands in the doorway bathed in light while Biru faces him, and in the display room, he addresses Biru beside the mounted sword and asks if he knows it. Seen beside the elder, Buru affirms that he does, identifying the weapon by name while Moma peeks from his shoulder. The frame blade glows with cold blue light, while Rudo acknowledges the answer with a satisfied breath. He then regarded the display as he explains it is one of the famed 5 swords of the Sword Saint, rarely seen in person. Buru closes his eyes with a faint confident smile, though against a crackling purple backdrop he privately admits he didn't actually know that much. Buru's true form strides through a luminous space surrounded by floating spectral swords, while he recalls favoring 5 excellent blades a millennium ago, and Buru thinks with a troubled look beside Rudo, musing that those famed blades were simply his 5 favorites. A hazy memory shows a gauntleted hand and a shining sword, while the long-standing question of abandoning the blades is raised. Rudo explains a modern interpretation with a thoughtful pose while sweating and fierce. Buru argues that it's incorrect. In a marble hall, the true Buru tucks a sword into an ornate chest, saying he hid his collection so others couldn't use it if he fell to the Demon King. He then glides over mountain peaks, declaring he only concealed the weapons for later retrieval. Amid surging light, the true Buru battles and states he left those 5 behind to wield a different magic blade in the final fight. Back in the room, Buru clutches his fist and insists the separate storage was merely a precaution while Rudo looks puzzled. Then Buru softens into a small smile and adds a reflective afterthought. The blue sword on the wall gleams as he admits that, since he truly died, hiding them proved worthwhile. Rudo explains that the relic was unearthed from ancient ruins and secretly kept by the Academy due to its rarity, narrowing his eyes while looking at him. He asks where Buru learned of the sword, leaving the student startled. Buru scratches the back of his neck awkwardly while Rudo waves off any excuses. In the room with the glowing wall-mounted sword, he addresses Buru standing before him and notes that such extraordinary skill suggests a hidden secret as Buru listens in profile. Rudo assures he won't expose whatever he's hiding, prompting a soft principle from him. Smiling gently, he says Buru's protection of the Academy and its students is enough for him. He looks above the sword and warns Buru against touching the blue-lit war sword doll head displayed on the wall. Buru asks why while Rudo explains that powerful protective magic has been placed on the weapon. A vivid scene shows people reaching for the sword and being shocked, implying none escaped unharmed. Wearing a confident smile, Buru suggests borrowing the sword if he can handle it safely. Rudo jolts in alarm as Buru reaches toward the display case. Blue energy bursts from the sword's display, pushing both figures back while Moma looks on. A torrent of power surges from the wall display toward the room and Moma squeaks in alarm beside the 2 men. Wreathed in blue energy, Buru stands firm before the surging blast, his hand gripping the sword's hilt while crackling power coils around his arm. Shards drift as he lifts the glowing blade overhead while Rudo gapes in shock behind him, sweating and reaching forward as he anxiously checks whether Buru is unharmed. Smiling with the sword, Buru stands fine while Rudo wonders how he avoided harm and Moma flutters near his shoulder. Buru rests the blade on his shoulder and grins, keeping the reason to himself. Later, the 3 of them sit at an outdoor cafe table with Moma perched nearby. Buru holds the sword across the table and remarks that chasing Moma unexpectedly led to this find while Flem examines the sword closely. Beaming, Buru praises Moma while Flem is surprised and asks where the blue flaming sword came from. He then studies the radiant edge and assesses that its power rivals sacred blades maintained by a prestigious sword society. At the cafe table, the trio admire the sword while a new figure's boot steps into view and calls out to them. A purple-haired girl in uniform stands on the walkway and asks if Dre is present. She faces forward with her eyes hidden by bangs. Buru looks up in surprise and begins to answer cautiously. The girl thrusts a hand as brilliant violet circles flare and slam into Buru. He recognizes the pattern of the glowing sigils with alarm and realizes it is classified as special grade magic. A violent purple blast erupts, tossing chairs and smoke across the courtyard. Flem drags Selly away while Moma flutters after them, shouting Buru's name. Sword in hand, Buru charges backward the roiling purple flames. Braced amid smoke, he grips the glowing blade and demands the attacker's identity. The purple-haired girl stands confidently in the drifting haze and introduces herself as Rhine. Amid lingering smoke, she strides toward the courtyard while Buru steadies his sword, saying there's something important to discuss and tells him to come with her. Buru was sweating tensely as Rhine smiled with a finger at her cheek, mentioning Buru's name. Buru stares wide-eyed with sweat on his cheek, gripping his sword as he reacts in disbelief amid lingering smoke. Rhine strolls lightly through the haze with a carefree air, implying he may have forgotten his own name. She leans in with a sly smile and hand to her cheek, softly speaking the name Buru to him. Buru's eyes narrowed, noting that she knows his name and wields special class magic. Rhine bends forward with a knowing smile while he wonders if she truly belongs to this era. Wearing a guarded look, Buru decides to go along for now to gather information. Buru agrees to listen as Selly worriedly calls to him from the side. Rhine beamed with a playful gesture, pleased that he understands. Buru instantly covers her mouth as she mentions him being the legendary sword saint, The two and Momo watch from behind. Biru jogs away carrying Ryan under one arm and assures the others he will return soon. Sully hugs Moma and voices worry while Flem studies the situation with a serious gaze. In an unused classroom with collapsed desks, Ryan leads the way and notes the room sits empty in the afternoons. She twirls a finger while walking past overturned desks in the empty classroom, and purple circuits and sigils flare across the walls as Biru looks around warily. On the stairway, Dre questions her ability while Ryan cheerfully notes she also blocks sound so nothing leaks out. Sweating, Biru thinks that ceiling and sound blocking are advanced spells no ordinary student handles. With a satisfied nod, he relaxes his stance beside a desk. Ryan lounges on the front desk with legs crossed, saying it's time to get to the point and once again mentioning his name. In the rows of seats, Biru asks why she keeps calling him Biru and insists his name is Dre. Ryan sighs, telling him to drop the act. Images of duels and surging energy surround her as she states that mastering special class magic and ultimate swordplay together is rare. With a serious look, she says such a person didn't exist even 1,000 years ago. Her crimson eyes reflect Biru as she adds that the exception is the legendary magic sword saint of this era. Biru connects the dots and says she must have lived a millennium ago. Ryan smiles with quiet confirmation, chirping that he is correct. Facing him with arms spread, she explains that only her soul was revived by swapping places with Ryan, the body's original owner. Ryan giggles on the desk while Biru concedes he is like her, and she celebrates his admission. His eyes narrowed as only few people knew who he was. A memory shows armored Biru fighting alongside mages against winged monsters as he wonders if she was among his allies. In a book-lined library, robed mentors demonstrate magic to a younger Biru as he considers whether she taught him long ago. But Ryan shakes her head and dismisses both guesses. Across the empty lecture hall, Biru asks if any other acquaintance with special class magic could explain her knowing him. Ryan stares flatly and declares such doubt impossible. Her white, red-laced boots rest on the floor as she says thinking it through should make it clear. Crossing her arms, she explains that a bodiless soul persisting for 1,000 years can still remain in this world. With sharp eyes, she adds that such endurance demands a strong obsession. Biru faces her as she admits she could not pass on yet and tells he is the same. Biru narrows his eyes and agrees that his soul lingered for a millennium. His bleak vision shows a battered hand reaching toward light while he cites regret over failing to save humanity. He asks if her situation matches his while she stands with her serious face. With shadowed eyes and swirling darkness behind her, Ryan confesses she felt deep frustration. Biru looks on with a puzzled expression, while Ryan clutches her chest amid roiling violet miasma, ceding that the battle she enjoyed was spoiled. A hand glows purple as she declares those with long lifespans should still be alive and vows to find them in this era. Shadowy figures raise their arms against a burning backdrop while she condemns subordinates for ruining the greatest fight. Wreathed in dark power, with a monstrous silhouette looming behind, Ryan promises to make them suffer in endless agony. Biru stands under a bright yellow glow with a flat expression. His eye flashes wide with sweat while he jolts in realization, pointing a trembling finger as he eyes Ryan and voices a startled suspicion. Ryan smiles knowingly and says he has finally caught on. With a bubbly and jaunty pose, she proclaims herself as the absolute Demon King Jira. Biru waves his hands in disbelief and yells that this bubbly demeanor doesn't match what he remembers. As a colossal demon with wings and fangs looms in smoke, while a memory chides that grand, he leans forward shouting that she used to be the stereotypical, overwhelmingly strong Demon King as Jira grins. Jira licks her lips with a mischievous smile, while a winded Biru covers his face as she answers his complaint about her former gender by stating that demons have none. Agitated and shouting, Biru insists he still doesn't understand and recalls that Jira's aim was to wipe out humanity, but Jira smiles lightly as if brushing off his concern. With a massive demonic form raging behind her, Jira awkwardly says she only wanted a place to unleash her power, leaving Biru flustered. She then explains that others propped up the Demon King and devised the invasion of human lands, while Biru could barely hold himself. Under a crescent moon, 4 hooded figures appear and are identified as the demon emperors who served as her executives. Back at the desk, Jira admits she should have stopped them but confesses she wasn't interested. A sequence of destruction culminates in the hulking demon facing the magic sword saint as she recounts following the emperor's plan. Hand to chest, Jira states that she was merely a machine of violence for their invasion. She seriously adds that this occurred during the final battle. Biru with a grim face listens carefully as Jira leads into the claim that the ones who killed them both were certain figures. She then continued and declared with fierce resolve that the culprits were the 4 demon emperors. In the empty lecture hall, Jira and Biru face each other near the lectern while pale magical ripples trail along the aisles as she recalls the decisive battle and those who killed them, leaving Biru with a stern look. Jira stares ahead in a purple haze, declaring that the culprits were the 4 demon emperors. She then listens while Biru notes that those emperors were high-ranking leaders of the demon clan. Biru raises his hand and questions why they wouldn't simply eliminate the magic sword saint. Jira touches her cheek thoughtfully and admits she doesn't know the exact reason. She lets violet power gather in her palm and suggests her overwhelming strength obstructed their aims, while remembering that aside from the magic sword saint battling demons, there are no other humans who could crush the demon clan alone. Exhaling lightly, Jira remarks that removing both the saint and the absolute demon king would grant the emperors more freedom. As illustrated in the history book, Buru stated that it was him who defeated Jira. From the stage, he gestures across the hall and asks why the 4 demon emperors vanished from history. Jira went serious as she says she has a guess about the cause. With her eyes sharp and glowing, she links it to their souls awakening again after 1,000 years. Buru reacts with wide eyes and a mark of surprise. Arms folded on the stage, she states that during their duel, the demon clan's forces were nearly wiped out. Buru asks what happened as he faces her at the front of the room. With a mischievous smile, Jira points forward hinting at the answer, while Buru looks at her puzzled. Then she dramatically jabs a finger at Buru, who recoils in alarm as she pins the deed on him. He stares blankly with a thoughtful pause, then jolts with sudden realization. He suddenly recalled how he annihilated the demon clan while Jira fumes with dark aura, and him sweating as he understands. She recalls being the demon king on the brink of death against him. She adds that the demon clan had no future of defeating humanity while standing calmly by a wooden wall. While listening intently, Buru asks what followed. She points upward and says she can guess the thoughts of the 4 demon emperors who took command. She studies dusty tomes at a desk and narrates that records claim the demon clan, after losing their king, was pushed to the continent's edge. Framed by a swirling sky, she states that the 4 emperors ordered a deliberate retreat. In the classroom, Buru questions her explanation as she stands on the platform. A star-strewn landscape appears as she explains the demons fled to the continent's edge while losses were still small, making humans think they had won. She continues that the demons concealed their entire race until they could regain their original strength, raising a finger for emphasis. Long rows of benches surround the 2 of them. Jira stated that demons and monsters outlive humans and can wait for a future resurgence. Buru gazes forward thoughtfully as Jira remarks about the time required. With a serious face and eyes glowing, she revealed that it was for 1,000 years. Startled, Buru turns to her and says the implication hits him while Jira stands with wind-tossed hair. With his brows furrowed, he wonders aloud if the demons who hid for a millennium are moving again now. She gives a firm, silent nod to affirm it. Placing a hand to her chest, she explains she has been investigating since inhabiting Rhine's body. Bathed in cool light, she recalls that Buru's sudden change lined up with that possession. With a violet glow over her heart, she says her soul entered the body at nearly the same moment. A bright classroom window shows fair skies while she notes a continent-wide sky anomaly just beforehand. In a sunlit courtyard, Selly reads on a bench as a memory points out the sky briefly shifting at lunch. Buru rubs his chin and remembers Selly mentioning the same thing. With a hard look, Jira says most modern humans were too weakened to notice. Her eyes narrowed as she continued that the effect likely came from intense, magical power diffusing everywhere. Buru balks and asks what kind of immense power could recolor the sky across the continent as she faces away. With a hard gaze, she explains that the overwhelming surge of magic likely came from the demon clan, making him alarmed and surprised. In the quiet hall, she adds that their dormant souls reacted to that widespread power and stirred. She then concludes that this reaction awakened them. He rubs his head, saying the influx of revelations is overwhelming while she watches from the desk. Images of snarling beasts crowd his thoughts as he connects the recent spike in monster savagery. She calls out that the same magical diffusion probably fueled that change as he backs away. Looking above the classroom, he reflects that his long-standing questions finally have answers. His shoe stops mid-stride as he steels himself. Facing her, he notes that the demon clan is on the move again. Straightening with resolve and a hand near his weapon, he states the war between humans and demons is poised to restart. Wrapped in a swirling purple aura, she agrees to him. Her eyes narrowed with a sly grin and remarks that humans have weakened while demons should be fully restored. His eye sharpens in the dark as he voices a tense challenge to her. Fingers closing around a glowing blade, he asks if she will stand as his enemy once more. Blue and violet flames roar around both of them, turning the classroom into a storm of power. Switching to a bubbly demeanor, she cheerfully refuses the idea. He points at her amid a red burst, demanding a reason and challenging whether she sides with demons while she tilts her head in confusion. With a sly grin that shows her small fangs and a lifted hand, she says she's unchanged from a millennium ago and simply wants a place to go all out. Turning away with lonely detachment, she says she has no attachment to the demon clan as he watches in flat expression. Purple power erupts around her as she declares a deep grudge against the 4 demon emperors. Her face contorts with rage, teeth bared and eyes blazing, as she seethes about those who interfered in their battle. Surrounded by glittering stars and a cheerful pose, she promises to lend her power to the legendary magic sword saint of this era. In the bustling cafeteria, students queue for food while servers dish out meals amid lively sound effects. At a table, Buru eats and reflects on the ancient foe, naming Jira as the Demon King. Still gripping bread and spoon, he wonders if the figure beside him might side with humans in this era. Selly and Flem stare wide-eyed with a small creature in her arms, questioning the possibility. Jira was chewing hard under a tense blue aura while Baru called her out and got her attention. While her cheeks are dotted with crumbs and a tray loaded with dishes, Baru demands to know why Jira is eating with them. With crumbs still on her face and a tense aura, she admits she has no other friends, while Baru urges her not to sound so lonely. He remembered her beaming with a heaped tray of bread and drinks as she greets Baru enthusiastically. Rubbing his forehead, Baru grumbles that he thought they had already disbanded. Flem speaks up, saying he has been mulling over a question for some time. Holding her bread and finger on her lips, Flem asks if she is Rhine, the top third year of the magic department. Jira acknowledges this as Selly jolts and calls her by honorific while Flem turns his gaze on her. Smirking over honorifics, Jira was holding her bread while Baru asked if Rhine is famous. Selly answers with a determined nod and raised fist. Selly recalled Rhine as avoiding interaction and rarely appearing outside classes. Jira slurps from a bowl while gripping bread, while Selly continues that the rumors paint her as very mysterious. Selly touches her chin with a dark expression and bead of sweat, mulling over that mysterious label. Baru laughs stiffly as he notes silently that her behavior differs because Jira is inside now while Selly clutches her lips in awe. Sitting across the table, Selly asks what kind of relationship exists between Jira and Baru. Holding the small creature, she worriedly recalls that Jira suddenly launched magic earlier. While eating, Jira chews enthusiastically and Baru folds his arms as he denies that they are getting along. With a fork at her cheek, Jira chews and looks up as she tries to define her connection with Baru. Selly recoils dramatically as Jira and Baru admit they once tried to kill each other, which she calls violent. Flem asks if they have known each other long, and both of them answer yes across the table. Their eyes became intense, silently mentioning that their history spans 1,000 years. Smiling warmly, Flem concludes they know each other well, likening it to comfortable childhood friends. Sitting side by side, Baru waves it off and says he hardly knows her at all while Jira was just sitting comfortably, and Flem remarks that this only makes things more confusing. Jira wipes her mouth with a handkerchief above a tray of empty dishes and says they can start getting to know each other now. She reaches out with a smile asking Baru to be her first friend. He recoils in surprise while Selly notes they hadn't even been friends before. Jira smiles with a casual hand flourish, explaining she is kept out of sight, and therefore has no friends, while Baru thinks to himself that her current isolation comes from circumstances the real Rhine set up. Rhine walked apart from a crowd with him saying she rarely appeared publicly and lacked friends. Jira glanced back while Baru leaned in, wondering if there was a reason for her avoidance of others. At a table piled with emptied dishes, Jira peers down mischievously as she notices Baru's curious look. With a faint blush, she claims she knows the reason and asks if he wants to hear it. Baru eyes her skeptically while Jira waves excitedly and urges him to agree. After a quiet beat, he relents and asks her to tell him. Jira lowers her face with a shadowed grin, chuckling to herself. Violet flames roar around her as she proposes settling it with a little fight. Baru startles, throwing his hands out and demanding to know why it has come to this, before baring his teeth with purple light around him and grabbing for his sword as impact marks flare. A purple shockwave launches him across the classroom while Jira stands within the blast, and the explosion smashes a hallway wall, sending debris flying as nearby students recoil in alarm. Amid drifting dust, Selly and Flem rush forward with Moma, calling out for Baru, while he skids into the plaza with sword in hand as smoke pours from a building and fleeing students scatter in reaction to the sudden commotion. A vast cloud rolls across the square while Jira's silhouette appears. She steps into view and erupts with crackling violet electricity, summoning a technique called Dark Lightning. Baru braces himself against the surging purple blast with clenched teeth, diving aside to evade a violet streak that gouges the ground. Sliding across the stones and sweating, he acknowledges that special class magic is firing in succession as needle-like purple projectiles spike toward him from every direction under the name Dark Harpoon. The plaza detonates in a booming purple explosion that shakes the buildings, and amid drifting dust, Baru sustains a glowing golden barrier and grimaces. Jira smiles while priming more special class magic. Tense and angry, Baru tries to put a stop to it. A towering hornstone gate with red eyes looms behind her as violet energy suspends her, summoning a technique called Necroman's Gate. The gate splits and blasts out torrents of purple mist with rumbling effects as swarms of gaping ghostly faces surge from the open portal while Jira hangs before it. Baru slashes through the storm with a glowing blue blade, shouting in frustration, while Jira bathes in swirling power, flushed and delighted by rampaging without restraint. She smiles with satisfaction, feeling good about releasing so much magic. Baru brandishes his sword and demands her objective while gritting his teeth. He shouted her name in frustration but instantly corrected himself by calling her Rhine. He faces the writhing portal and drifting blue phantoms while addressing how wildly she is rampaging. Arms spread and aura billowing, Jira urges him to focus and sense her, Rhine's magic. A bright golden cluster of particles appears in darkness as it spreads through the surroundings. Baru gazes at a shining core and wonders if it is magic power, and amid rushing energy he deduces that her nearly limitless power is influenced by Jira's soul, yet feels distinct and human-like. Startled, Baru realizes something crucial as light flashes across his face, and confronting the portal where Jira hangs, he admits he now understands why the real Rhine avoided people. With a firm expression, he begins describing what he senses within Rhine's magic, while Jira hovers in a storm of violet aura and specters as he notes an original trace of demon clan traits in it. She grins with glowing red eyes, framed by a blue aura, as darkness pools below. Jira strides across the plaza with a playful step, while violet smoke coils around her, acknowledging the point with a confident grin. Standing amid drifting dust, Baru realizes that Rhine seems to carry a small trace of demon blood. Jira taps her cheek thoughtfully and compares it to having a distant demon ancestor. Rhine looks downcast, while Baru reflects that such mixed blood is shunned, explaining her avoidance of others. Jira studies her own hand and says there's no need to worry about it. With a clenched fist, she notes that Rhine's body has demon blood flowing through it. Her purple spirit is drawn toward a small figure as she admits her soul was attracted by that trait. Back in the square, Jira spreads her arms with an apologetic smile, clarifying she never wished to take over the body. Facing Baru from a distance, she declares she'll settle matters with the 4 demon emperors and then search for a way to return the body. With his hand over his chest, Baru answers that after the struggle with demons, he also intends to return the body to Dre. Jira smiled at him, stating that for it to happen they needed to deal with them. Her smile sharpens as shadows gather, saying the demon leaders must be handled for that plan to work, and she ignites in raging violet flames, proclaiming vengeance on the 4 demon emperors. Her aura crackles intensely while Baru remarks that her hatred runs deep. The two face each other across the broken street as he questions whether the sudden attack was only to say all this, and she admits mixed motives. With eyes gently closed, Baru advises that since she's human now, she should try a more peaceful approach. But he falters with a puzzled sound as Jira lowers her head and purple miasma thickens around her. She smiles beneath her bangs while purple power engulfs her hands, saying this is the moment to settle matters. Baru braces as she mentioned the Demon King and the Magic Sword Saint. Jira rockets toward him in a blazing violet surge, thinking who was the stronger between the two of them. A black torrent slashes past and Baru grimaces, driven back by the force. He gritted his teeth in alarm as a purple blast detonated nearby with jagged light. A seething explosion balloons between them, Baru crying out with a golden magic circle on his hand to block while Jira thrusts her palm forward. Skidding across the tiles, he rides a silver rush as violet lightning shards streak past. In the plaza beneath a colossal inverted pyramid and a glowing statue, he urges Jira to stop and says this era is different. He declares that he doesn't plan on a lethal fight there. Jira taps her chin and hums thoughtfully. Then brightening, she points upward as a pink magic circle blooms and proposes another way. A beam from the circle strikes Baru's chest, forming a glowing violet gem as he looks puzzled, while a radiant sigil shines in Jira's raised hand. Baru inspects the new brooch pinned to his uniform, uncertain of its meaning. Jira displays an identical gemstone brooch on her chest, explaining it was made by crystallized magic. In the plaza, she points behind her while explaining the duel will be decided by smashing brooches and that further strikes are off limits, smirking with a raised finger as she notes this rule keeps things from turning into a kill or be killed fight. Hand near his new gem, Baru frowns and says going all out for the brooches still seems risky. With the blazing statue behind her, Jira replies that he just needs to guard himself since he's the famed Magic Sword Saint. Jira bounces with eager fists as Baru scratches his head and concedes that she really wants a fight. He grins, accepting the challenge if she insists. Surrounded by icy light and a phantom of his true form, Baru draws his glowing blade and proposes settling old business, while Jira forges a jagged purple weapon with a smirk. Amid a shadow force behind her, she exclaims that this is the spirit she wanted. Through a shattered opening, blue arcs frame the square as Jira and Baru face off. Flem and Sully, clutching a fluffy creature, stare wide-eyed, wondering how it came to this. The duelists rocket toward each other while blue and violet trails colliding in a brilliant burst near the statue, their weapons grinding in a pillar of light as sparks spray. Golden light flies while Jira dives with her purple blade. Baru rises through a surge of cold light as he counterattacks her strike. Jira skids forward with a fierce grin as purple energy trails around her. The paving stones ahead burst apart in impact. Baru spins with a blue-lit sword as multiple rushing trails of Jira surround him. Tense and glowing, Baru remarks that her sword skill is formidable. Jira laughs it off, brandishing a violet blade and asserting she can wield magic and sword to this extent as a demon king. Their weapons meet, spraying yellow sparks and rippling blue light, until a radiant sphere erupts between them and pushes the duelists apart across the plaza. With a wide magic circle behind her, Jira raises a hand and announces a special class spell. A colossal purple beam surges from the circle. Bathed in a massive golden rune, Baru fires a brilliant counter of his special class magic. The purple and gold beams collide and burst into blinding light. A towering plume of smoke and debris rises over the square. Amid settling dust, Jira coughs and steadies herself, her eye widening in alarm as she notices something. Baru rockets forward, wreathed in blue light, driving a glowing strike down toward Jira as her hair flares from the rush. Amid swirling frostlight, Buru steels himself with a grim smile as he recalls tension from 1,000 years ago. While the blue cord sword glows in his hand, he regrets an unfinished outcome. A towering surge of blue power erupts as Buru dives forward with his blade, accompanied by words calling it humanity's strongest force and urging the opponent to savor it fully. A torrent of blue-white energy rages as Buru and Jira are hurled in opposite directions, fangs bared and loud sounds slicing through the chaos. Buru and Jira rush each other and smash their glowing blades together with fierce faces. Jira grins while parrying Buru's sword, sparks flying as she exults that the duel continues from 1,000 years ago. Their clash blooms into a circular shockwave across the courtyard while Buru prepares to escalate. Buru's shoe screeches along the ground with a trail of blue aura as he accelerates. He darts in on the surprised Jira, declaring unwavering resolve. Buru cleaves downward with a colossal blue strike that explodes the pavement as he proclaims victory. Selly, clutching Moma beside Flem, cries out toward the battlefield through rolling smoke. She faces Buru from behind amid the ruined courtyard and protests that he is going too far. Half smiling in the mist, Buru tells Selly there's no problem. Selly looks shocked while Moma was peeking over her shoulder. Jira emerges within the swirling smoke, purple aura pulsing and a sly smile forming. Selly reacts with a sharp gasp as she notices the movement. A white explosion erupts near the two of them, kicking up thick clouds and debris. A sweeping wave of dark violet power surges outward toward Buru, who readies his blue-lit sword. Jira thrusts a swirling violet sphere from her palm, announcing a life-crashing technique. Buru grimaces with his sword raised, showing irritation. A dense purple dome blossoms around Jira, while the blast rattles the ground and Buru steadies himself. He sweeps a blue arc that flings Jira backward. Buru coughs and leans on his sword as Jira landed with twin purple rings whirling behind her. Buru smirks through sweat, admitting she is as ruthless as expected. Wreathed in violet aura, Jira spreads her arms and says a single lapse would have left her beaten, then asks if he feels honored. Grinning sharply with glowing eyes, Jira says only he can match her. Standing amid shattered paving, Buru thanks her yet worries the academy will be ruined if this continues. He decides it can't be helped and resolves to finish the fight with his next move. Blue power floods around him as he charges his blade for a decisive strike. A brilliant blue slash forms as he calls on his battle sword, noting it's been a while since he relied on it. Jira surrounds herself with intricate purple sigils, saying he seems confident but will be the one to lose. A colossal purple beam crashes down while Buru braces below and she declares that the loser is him. Buru's gaze hardens as a burst of blue energy erupts into the darkness. He rockets upward in a blue aura with his sword lifted, diving toward the churning purple vortex. Jira recoils with wide eyes and a raised hand as purple motes swirl above her. Buru lunges across the ground wreathed in blue aura, declaring his battle sword technique. Jira steadies herself with a jagged violet blade crackling with lightning while he explains it unleashes an owner's full power. Her features twist feral with glowing eyes and bared fangs as her power surges. Violet blades spear inward from all directions while Buru braces within a ring of blue light. He cleaves a sweeping blue arc through the storm of purple energy, remarking on special class magic. Smiling confidently, he notes the technique now bears a grand title among the 5 swords. Across the plaza, Jira lashes multiple violet strikes while he holds a blue crescent, saying it's his favorite blade. She grips her sword, crackling with power, and begins to voice defiance. She glares ahead with clenched teeth and proclaims she will not lose. A violet projectile streaks toward Buru as he looks up in alarm. The strike rips past his torso, and he jerks backward with blue energy trailing. Jira raises an arm as a blue streak rushes past her uniform, hair whipping in the wind. A blue flash strikes the purple brooch on her jacket, splintering its gem. Buru thrusts his glowing sword skyward in a pillar of light while Jira hangs suspended beside him with her weapon lowered. The damaged clasp splits in two and tumbles away. With a confident smile and raised arm, Buru declares the match settled. In the shattered plaza, Jira sags with her head lowered while he stands opposite with sword in hand. Jira murmurs uncertainly, her eyes hidden beneath her hair. Buru stares in surprise at her wavering voice. She throws her head back and wails that she lost. She rolls on the pavement kicking and shouting about hating defeat while Buru watches in disbelief. Catching her breath, she sits on her knees and calls out to him. With cheeks flushed and sparkles swirling, she coyly suggests taking the fight to a lethal level. Buru bluntly refuses as she scowls beside him. He reminds her of her goal against the 4 demon emperors and tells her to vent that urge elsewhere. He folds his arms thoughtfully while she puffs her cheeks in annoyance. Beaming about his long-awaited win, he prompts her to scream in outrage. Selly and Flem rush in with Moma, calling out to Buru and Jira. Selly restrains the snarling, while Flem tries to stop her and Buru stands calm beside them. Buru looks up at the bright sky, stating it's time to start searching. A crystalline cavern with rune-marked pillars glows around an altar as he speaks of power beyond special class magic and outside the usual system. A radiant scroll drifts in golden light, referring to ancient writings about mythical class magic. Dawn glows over the academy early in the morning as Buru jogs along the courtyard path, Sweat beads on his cheek while he runs, breath puffing. He sprints hard beside the fence with focused eyes and streaking motion lines. He bends over on the empty walkway, exhaling heavily from the run. Gazing at the brightening sky, he notes it's been about a week since reuniting with Jira. Determination sharpens his face while he speaks of preparing for a looming battle with the demon clan after 1,000 years. A boot skids forward with speed lines, saying he has begun serious training in Dre's body. He races toward the morning light as he emphasizes daily conditioning and the need for mythical class magic next. Still jogging, he recalls Selly mentioning a big festival and a week-long academy closure. At a row of faucets, he splashes his face, thinking the timing could work well. With a towel at his mouth, he notes he needs to prepare for a journey. In a corridor, Jira rushes in, waving and cheerfully calls to Baru while Selly and Flem with Moma react in surprise. She kicks the classroom door open and cheerfully calls Baru, startling Selly while he sits with arms crossed. Bursting from a hedge with leaves fluttering, Jira, while popping out of the bush, shouts toward Baru as the three of them with Moma turn to her in shock. Jira clings to Baru's arm with a bright grin while he grimaces and tries to pull away. Expression flat and pet in her arms, Selly remarks that it feels like her mentor was taken as Flem laughs behind her while reiterating that it was rather chasing. She shoves Moma into Flem's hands and complains that she's getting less time with Baru. Hands on hips, Selly calls out to Jira while Baru pries himself free and she is hanging on his arm. With eager resolve, Selly declares a head-to-head contest for Baru with her fists planted on her waist. Baru gapes and Jira frowns in confusion at the sudden challenge. With teary determination, Selly cries that she wants time to chat with Baru too while Flem lifts Moma on the side. Looking weary, Baru tells Jira that she's the reason Selly is acting strangely. Jira tilts her head with wide pink eyes and asks if that isn't acceptable. With a mischievous purple aura swirling behind her, Jira sidles closer and says Baru is one of her few friends even from her demon days, while he wonders aloud if the two of them are truly friends. Sweating and flustered, Baru tells her not to cling to him so casually because she's a girl, while Selly grumbles in the background. She tilts her head in confusion as Baru covers his face and mutters that she misunderstood. Baru explains that she simply doesn't grasp proper boundaries for physical contact as Flem winks with Moma perched on his head. Amid comments about public embarrassment, Jira strides forward with a smug smile while Baru and nearby students react. She accepts a challenge with a sly grin, extending her hand as a dark glow surrounds her. A finger points straight at Selly, who stiffens in surprise. Flames flare between them while Baru clutches his head and Flem brushes Moma nearby. Cheerfully brushing the relaxed Moma, Flem remarks that things are getting interesting. While in the classroom, Selly was bothered about the quiz. Jira and Selly face off with crackling energy between them. Selly declares they should compete in studying. Flustered at her desk, Jira yawns in boredom while taking the quiz. She lifts a paper marked 100 and looks relieved and proud, while Selly holds a paper marked 62 and droops under a gloomy expression. Baru examines the papers with a casual remark as Jira laughs atop a bench and Selly sinks in defeat. But she snaps back with resolve and urges them to move to the next challenge. Selly announces a contest of physical activities, though wearing gym clothes she tumbles and hits the ground. While Jira flips the ball high into the air as students' mouths parted in shock, Jira stands hands on hips, sparkling with triumph. Back by the bench, she leans over Selly defeatedly lying on the pavement, while Baru watches in silence and Moma naps. Selly bursts up with tears in her eyes, insisting it isn't over. She proclaims the final challenge will be practical magic. In the training yard, Jira conjures a shining orb that sends multiple training dummies floating amid purple haze. Numerous pink magic circles spray intersecting beams across the wall while Selly gapes and Jira points victoriously from afar. Baru jolts as Selly spins with blank eyes amid a gloomy swirl. She then leans forward in despair, saying Jira is too strong while Baru watches awkwardly. Jira flashes double peace signs with a sparkling grin, cheerfully noting that a former demon king winning over Selly is only natural. Eyes closed and dejected, Selly admits the only special class spell she can use is called Prominence Gate. Jira pumps her fists while Selly slumps on a bench beside Baru as the result, declaring Jira the winner is acknowledged. With a disappointed look, Selly concedes the rights regarding Baru to Jira and adds that the contest was fun. She then turns with a startled look, as from the side Jira says she has hardly had chances to compete with anyone. Bathed in pink sparkles, she beams and reaches out to thank Selly for the enjoyable match. While Selly looks up warmly and calls to her, holding hands with a wide smile, Selly listens as Jira suggests they be friends while she agrees. The two girls cuddle joyfully amid flowers while Jira celebrates gaining another friend. Side by side, Jira and Selly lean together as she brings up the rights to Baru again. Bathed in golden rays, Jira dismisses the reward with a carefree gesture, startling Selly as Baru stands to the side. Flem smiles with Moma perched on his arm, while a sweating and rejected Baru looks over, as she added that she likely wouldn't use it soon. Selly worriedly asks for clarification. Jira walks away toward the academy, indicating she has already gathered what she needed there. She turns with a confident smile and says she plans to leave the academy for a while. One of the trainees in Dre faction dashes across the courtyard with a practice sword, wind streaks curling toward a wooden target. She then spins the blade into bright arcs and hacks the dummy while crying out with effort. Another trainee then channels a flowing blue stream from his hand as he reads from an open spellbook, and his magic bursts into jagged ice that engulfs the target as he thrusts his palm forward. Selly and Flem smile beside the trainees as they applaud their big improvement. In the yard, Jira and Buru lounge on a bench with Momo, while the others gather near the ice-coated dummy beneath a clear sky. Buru intently asks if Jira is leaving the academy to investigate demon activity, to which Jira touches her chin and reasons that if demons are already moving, the situation must be properly understood. Seated together, Jira cautions that waiting for an invasion would be too late as Momo flutters between them. Buru agreed and turned to her, then considered offering help to her. But Jira says she'll handle things alone for now and tells him to continue training everyone. She then remarked that their small team wouldn't be enough if another invasion begins. Looking at Flem and Selly standing with the trainees, Jira emphasized that having more capable fighters is best. Beru smiles with resolve and says he'll train everyone well, so they can protect what matters to them. Beru then turns to her and mentions a short training trip during the festival break with Selly and the others, to which Jira asks where he plans to go. Buru answers that the destination is the northern ancient ruins where a mythical class magic lies dormant. Jira folds her arms as she echoes the mythical class magic, musing that it dates back beyond 1,000 years to the era of super magic. Buru explains that unlike ordinary spells, there is a special prerequisite to activating mythical class magic. It was revealed that it requires engraving vast and indecipherable knowledge into one's body. He adds that although he used several such spells before, he must visit those ruins to re-engrave the knowledge into his current body. Golden radiance swirls as he identifies the light attribute mythical class magic he was looking to obtain, the Divine Horizon. Jira looks puzzled at the name, saying it sounds somehow familiar. This prompted Buru to chime in and fill her in with the reason, noting that it's the technique that badly injured her past life as Jira, the absolute demon king. With this, she exclaimed as she finally remembered what had happened back then. Her memory of herself as the absolute demon king left in tatters flashes in her mind. Jira clears her throat and remarks that possessing that magic would make future battles easier. Watching the trainees practice nearby, Jira notes these drills are for the coming clash with demons. Time has come for her departure, and the well-prepared Jira stands at the academy gate with a confident smile. In the town square, Selly flusters and laments Jira's departure as everyone watches. Jira gently pats Selly's head and promises to return after advancing her magic research. Looking at Jira and Selly together, Biru thought that the official reason for her leave was to research magic. Jira considers that talking about demons wouldn't be understood and might only cause confusion. She then winks with a faint blush at Biru, as if a secret signal for the two of them. She finally raised a hand high in farewell as Flem, Selly, Moma, and Biru saw her off beneath the raised portcullis. After Jira's departure, Biru was eager to train the students and lead runs with them. Sparring fiercely with Flem, he focused on training himself, and cooking with Selly as flames burst, while also eagerly training them. Colorful bunting and confetti decorate the streets, while crowds gather under a large banner to celebrate the festival's arrival. The students were happily walking around the park. Amid lively stalls and flags, Biru stands with a small bag by the steps while looking around the festival, then looks up thoughtfully and notes these events didn't exist in his time, wondering what is being celebrated. From the steps, Selly answers that it's a festival honoring peace while Biru stands below with his bag. Flem accompanies a cheerful Selly as Moma stretches, with Selly saying the tradition was founded by the legendary magic sword saint. With Moma on Biru's shoulder, Flem remarks that the saint's existence is uncertain. Then smiling amid flags and ornate buildings, he adds that celebrating peace like this is wonderful. Biru agrees while gazing at a large red banner as Flem and Selly watch from the stairs. With Moma, he looks sharply as he reflects that this peace wasn't created by him. Turning beneath the banner, he thinks it merely appeared peaceful for 1,000 years as Selly and Flem look on. He flashes a confident grin and proposes that they get going. The three of them with Moma head out through the gate toward open fields as Biru resolves to prove he can save humanity by his own hands. A horned figure strides through a burning ruin with flames roaring around. Amid drifting embers, a stern older man looks sideways and mentions that it has been 1,000 years. As red-eyed wolves lunge at terrified children while he speaks of a long, bitter span, demon birds sweep over rocky ground while he declares the demon clan's revival, and amid roaring flames his suited figure strides, while he ominously notes that the troublesome magic sword saint and the absolute demon king have already departed this world. Above a blazing wasteland with circling birds and distant beasts, he urges an advance. He then stands proudly in the inferno, declaring the invasion of human lands. Meanwhile, the three of them move forward together across open ground with Moma fluttering above, while Jira explores a cavern by torchlight while carefully reading a map. The horned elder smirks through drifting embers as he warns that the struggle begins anew. Selly grips the rope with a panicked face, repeating to herself not to look down, while a boot presses onto a creaking wooden plank of the bridge. Biru turns with a smile and tells everyone to look while they inch along the ropes. The group admires a vast canyon with a tall waterfall under a bright sky. On the bridge, the anxious Selly urges Biru to hurry while he mentions northern ruins and praises the scenery. But Selly sweats and winces, saying she likes the view but has a more urgent wish. The bridge spans a deep chasm as she yells that she wants to cross it quickly. And off the bridge, Selly collapses in exhaustion beside Momo while Biru drinks from a container, marking festival period day 2. Biru suggests she practice flying magic to ease the fear, and Selly responds uncertainly. While he illustrates that mastering flying magic would let him, Selly, and Momo float safely even if the bridge shattered. Flem asks about his own situation while Biru covers his face in mock despair, and a fanciful scene shows Flem riding a larger Momo before he hugs the tiny creature while looking dejected. The trio speeds forward with Moma, noting travel would be easier with more friends who can fly. On a rocky plain, Biru states that their destination for this trip is the northern ancient ruins. He explains that gaining mythical class magic knowledge demands extraordinary willpower, warning that Selly and Flem would have their minds destroyed instantly if they attempted it now. Standing by the bridge with Moma hovering, he tells them that while they aren't ready for mythical magic, their presence on this journey still matters. He spreads an arm toward the mountain landscape, indicating the many open spaces and the lack of people. He explains they can practice Choir training then at the academy. Biru smiles with a glint while Flem talks about forging ultimate sword techniques, and Selly vows to learn flying magic. Biru smiles under the clear sky and urges everyone to reach their goals by the end of their journey. A quiet mountain path winds through green hills under a bright sky. Selly summons green radiance around her feet, forming rings of magic. Her feet lift with a sudden surge of light, startling her. Selly shoots skyward with a cry as Biru and Moma stare at her flatly. Flem braces between stacks of stones while Gust's whip leads around him. He narrows his eyes as violet power gathers. He unleashes a sweeping slash, sending a purple shockwave through the ring of cairns. With sword lowered, Flem surveys the result while Biru watches from a rock in the distance. Facing an empty expanse, Biru tells the others to watch. He bursts forward at high speed across the field. A blue vortex wraps around him as he streaks toward a tree stump. Combining techniques, suspended among luminous sigils, he channels golden and blue energies with a roaring flare above. The energies crash into the stump with a violent blast. Biru dives headlong wrapped in a blue aura. Continuing the technique, he follows through with a powerful blue arc that cleaves the air across the scorched field. Selly beams while Flem smiles in approval. A faint rainbow shimmers over the quiet hills, climbing a rocky slope with the others following. Biru reflects that his body is adapting and preparations are progressing. Biru steadies himself, blue energy curling from his arm as he considers the looming full-scale battle with the demon clan. Selly points ahead and calls to Biru as Moma flutters beside her. Biru focuses ahead, taking in the sight as they arrive. The group and Moma trek toward a torchlit stone temple on a barren slope, identified as the northern ancient ruins called Yamu. Flem looks surprised while Selly notes it's odd they've never heard of these ruins despite the academy being nearby. At the doorway, Biru explains that concealment magic lets only those informed perceive the ruins, so most people miss them. At the threshold, Biru urges caution as the team prepares to enter while Moma sprawls on the floor. Selly tenses and asks why, prompting Flem to respond while stretching his hand. He added with a smile that mythical era ruins with powerful hidden magic likely have a fearsome guardian, startling Selly as Biru stands ahead. They descend a curving staircase into a blue-lit interior, while Selly wonders about the correct answer and Biru murmurs in curiosity. A vast arched hall glows with blue light, and Biru acknowledges the sight with calm confidence. Selly hugs Moma in fear as ominous rumbling fills the chamber. Biru remarks that Flem's earlier prediction proved accurate. The floor bursts with debris and shockwaves while the trio steadies themselves. A towering armored guardian strides from the smoke with crystal lights and a massive sword. The giant's advance forces the three to react, weapons ready. Biru clashes blades with the guardian, sparks flying as Flem and Selly watch wide-eyed. With a fierce grin reflected in steel, Biru speaks with resolve. Surrounded by blue energy, he darts along the guardian's bulk in a swift charge. Still wreathed in aura, he announces that it's time to show their strength. He leaps and carves a blazing arc at the guardian, declaring that they will demonstrate what they are capable of. A red-laced white boot plants on dusty ground as a tattered cloak flutters in the wind. Jira stands atop a rocky ledge with her cloak whipping, surveying the cloudy sky with a calm and determined look. She went serious and said her prediction proved correct. She looks down toward a wasteland of shattered debris and drifting smoke. Dark beasts and demon figures crowd a swirl of purple haze as she states the invasion has begun again. She lowers her gaze and speaks about the magical power lingering in the place. She holds a hand over rippling light and says she can sense one of the 4 demon emperors. Jira smiles with bright eyes and says she's relieved to finally pursue her revenge. Facing the wind, she admits that using Rhine's body still affects her feelings. Looking over the ruined settlement, she says the devastation of human villages makes her a bit angry. Jira presses a glowing hand to her chest and tells Rhine not to worry, promising to settle that anger. Cloak shredding in a surge of violet energy, she declares they will crush the demons together. Meanwhile, Buru burst forward wreathed in blue power, swinging his sword with fierce intent. He crashes into the armored guardian's blade, sparks scattering across the floor. Buru strains with a confident grin and says the guardian still won't budge. The towering construct squares off against him as arcs of light streak around the arena. Smiling with sweat on his cheek, Buru says the fight brings back memories. Long-haired Buru grins with a sweaty cheek and lifts his glowing sword, saying they've finally reached the place of mythical class magic. In the Yamu ruins long ago, the armored guardian looms with sword raised while Buru remarks that no one warned him of such danger. Blue currents wrap around Buru as he spreads his arms and says this situation isn't so bad. He faces the gigantic guardian across the shimmering hall and notes there is much to learn from fighting the strong. Buru tightens his stance within a blue aura and declares he must become far stronger to save humanity. 4 radiant golden sigils flare behind him as he gathers power. The guardian charges through erupting yellow bursts, while Buru accepts the trial head-on. In the present, Buru looks upward with a rueful smile and admits he was only full of spirit back then. The memory shows Buru sprinting away past water and bars while the guardian strains behind, and he says he fled after seizing the mythical magic. Back to now, Buru lifts his sword with a determined smile and calls this a rematch. He squares off against the guardian again, repeating that strength comes from battling the strong. Selly presents her hands with fiery resolve beside Flem's steady stance, telling the guardian it will be their training partner. Wrapped in blue aura, Buru charges and hails the great guardian of the ruins. Flem rushes beneath the guardian's weapon and says he will unveil the ultimate sword technique he forged during their journey. The guardian's massive blade smashes the tiles and sprays rubble, while Flem slips aside in a violet haze. Flem sets his stance with power swirling around his sword, while activating his ultimate technique. A circular gust whirls from Flem's swing, forming a wide ring that surges around the armored giant. The guardian steadies its gleaming bulk as stones clatter across the floor. Selly dashes in beside a glowing barrier and says she will follow up. With pink fire curling around her hands, Selly begins invoking her special class magic. The guardian stomps down and cracks the floor. It drives forward with a heavy rush towards Selly, drawing her startled reaction. Selly tightens her expression and says she has been training hard on the journey. Green currents lift her into the air as a blazing golden gate flares in front of the guardian. The guardian tilts its head upward, visor shining as it tracks her flight. Ready to strike, Selly thrusts both hands toward the target. A towering burst of flame roars from the summon gate and engulfs the guardian. Inside the inferno, a bright core glows at the center of the flames. The blaze detonates outward, hurling debris and shockwaves across the hall. Smiling broadly, Selly runs through the drifting smoke, proudly saying she did it. Beaming with excitement, she asks Buru if he saw her successfully use flying magic in real combat, while flames billow behind her as the guardian stands wreathed in fire. She jerks her head with a wide-eyed alarm, sweat beading on her cheek. Flem darts in front and catches the guardian's descending blade, sparks bursting while Selly ducks close. Teeth gritted, Flem holds the sword overhead while he's straining under the impact. The crash hurls Flem and Selly backward, cracking the floor as they tumble with startled cries. Buru raises his hand and says he'd been watching and was ready to step in if danger rose. A golden cushion catches Flem and Selly safely as Buru adds that their new techniques were well used. Through drifting smoke, the guardian's visor glows as it steadies itself. Buru launches forward and cleaves upward in a bright arc while Flem and Selly crouch behind the golden dome, rushing in with blue wind at his heels. Buru says he's very satisfied. He rains rapid blows across the armored giant, sparks flashing in a blue swirl. A spinning blue blur streaks past the guardian. Buru appears at its flank, trailing wind and poised to press the attack. Grinning, he slams his blade into the guardian's back and sends fragments flying. The guardian skids backward, gouging long scars across the tiles. From the golden dome, Buru calls out to Selly and Flem while their mouths parted in awe. With blue currents gathering, Buru praises their excellent fighting as the guardian looms behind him. He tells them to watch now, eyes bright with confidence. Wrapped in a roaring blue aura, Buru levels his shining sword and says it's the magic sword saint's time to shine. Buru lunges at the armored giant, blue energy trailing across the tiled arena. With his teeth bared, Buru says head-on sword clashes aren't in his favor. His blade blazes with blue light along the edge as he swung it. He then says he has a countermeasure for that and streaks in a sweeping arc of light. Buru skims past the giant's shoulder with his aura whipping behind him. A searing blue slash tears forward past the guardian's massive body. The armored giant answers with a wide, forceful swing that rips the air. Buru slides low beneath the follow-through, leaving a glowing trail on the floor. With his eyes sharp, he hurtles forward with steady focus. He smashes into the giant with a concentrated burst that explodes blue light outward. The construct reels, its eye dimming as debris shakes loose. As they watch from quite a distance, Selly marvels while Flem stands ready as Moma hovers around. Flem remarked that recent training has sharpened Buru's physical skill even more. As Buru circles behind the foe, Flem adds that it excels head-on but reacts slowly to blindside attacks. Buru carves into the helmet's side, throwing sparks and blue streaks. He advances on the towering frame and says it's time to finish this. Buru grins and announces the activation of his ultimate sword technique. Mirages of Buru whirl around the giant as he names the attack Swift Strike Shadow Break. Blue-edged slashes rake across the Guardian's upper armor, leading streaks of light. More rapid cuts spin around its torso, glowing trails crisscrossing the metal. The armored giant shudders as blue shards and sparks burst from repeated impacts. Its single eye glows while the head cable trembles. Buru charges in with a bright column of mana slash running along his blade. Gritting his teeth, Buru recalls regretting his failure to finish a Guardian 1,000 years ago. In that memory, long-haired Buru stands by a scorched stone stronghold, wondering if he deserved mythical magic. Facing the towering construct now, he says the situation has changed. Relaxed and sure, Buru states he has proven his strength as blue embers drift around him. Selly rushes forward with Momo, while Flem follows with calm approval. Grinning, Buru asks how they liked his show and remarks that their master is strong. Selly answers happily while Flem cradles Moma beside her. The trio walks through a vast hall of luminous blue arches that curve into the distance. With a serious expression on his face, Buru says the route lies ahead. They stop before colossal golden doors etched with a sprawling tree glowing softly. The three of them gape at the towering door while Moma flutters nearby, and Flem marvels at its size. Buru reaches toward the gilded surface and explains that opening it demands pouring immense magic into the door. Determination gleams in Buru's eyes as energy stirs around him. He presses his palm to the radiant tree-etched seam, channeling power into the door. The colossal doors blaze outward, flooding the hall with beams of light as the team stands below. The opening widens into a blinding rift while Flem watches and Selly shields her eyes, clutching the creature. Selly gazes ahead in awe with the round companion nestled in her arms. Golden motes drift as they behold a vast chamber centered on a glowing circular device. The trio approaches a luminous disc where a scroll floats within rings above a step pedestal. Buru presents the floating relic as an ancient record of mythical magic, labeled Idea Scroll. Flem and Selly stare at the artifact with sharp, surprised expressions. From the dais, Buru states that mythical class magic cannot be mastered by everyone. Selly listens solemnly while Buru warns that the overwhelming knowledge can burn the soul without strong willpower. Buru begins stressing how tough it is, his voice laced with utter seriousness as he speaks. With a stern stare, he acknowledges that the attempt could be fatal for him. Flem questions the danger and Buru confirms it with a calm reply. Selly, holding Moma, reacts in disbelief while Flem stands beside her with arms folded. Buru steps forward on the stone floor, signaling it's time to move. Striding ahead with fierce resolve, he tells Flem and Selly they will take on the life-risking challenge. At the radiant device, Buru points toward the floating scroll as Flem and Selly watch from the platform behind him. The scroll unfurls into glowing spirals covered in script that coil around Buru. Surrounded by shimmering words, he thinks he has mastered mythical class magic many times during his magic sword sing era. He remembered to control his breathing and stabilize his mind as he hovered inside the scroll. Buru's eyes snap wide with fierce focus. Declaring readiness, he unleashes dark streaks that rip through the radiant layers surrounding him. Buru strains inside a web of crackling golden arcs, groaning as his limbs play against the force. He clenched his mouth, showing a pained grunt through bared teeth. Electricity surges around him as he throws his head back and lets out a long scream. Selly covers her mouth while Flem looks tense and Moma flutters nearby amid swirling debris. Light erupts from Buru's chest as he stands rigid within the blazing storm, feeling a searing heat. He studies his hand wreathed in golden glow, acknowledging the burning sensation. Tears streak down his face as lightning sigils whirl. His eyes then narrowed into a steady, focused gaze. In a starry void, a glowing scroll canister floats before him as he stands ready. Buru reminisces the familiar ache that comes with gaining immense magic. Surrounded by unfurling, luminous pages of the scroll, he admits he won't complain about enduring this. As the scroll encircled around him, he declares that mythical power is needed to defend humanity. He then reaches out with a decisive, poised hand. Buru drives his fist into a radiant wall of illuminated scroll script, blasting light outward. The impact bloomed into blinding rays that flared round his fist. He thrusts his arm up and seizes a glowing sphere, proclaiming he'll take the mythical magic called Divine Horizon. Beams then flared across the starry space, the sun-bright core blazing while luminous scrolls whirl around it in the cosmic void. A tide scroll canister quivers with bright bursts against a warm golden glow. Back at the altar room, Buru wobbles in midair as the canister drifts above and Selly watches from below. Buru lands with a relaxed smile and spreads his arms as if relieved, his shoe tapping the stone floor with a light, solid step. Flem then rushed in and caught the staggering Buru to steady him. Sweating and smiling faintly, Buru looks up toward Flem as if addressing him. Flem questions him if he got the mythical class magic while Selly and Moma hurry over from the doorway. Buru nods with a soft smile and lifts a hand that glows faintly. Grinning brightly, he then pumps his fist and declares he succeeded. The trio and Moma walk through a blue-lit corridor while Buru remarks that he mastered the mythical magic. With an arm over Flem's shoulder, he says the journey turned out to be a great success. Sully smiles in relief as Moma flutters overhead and Flem chats with Baru ahead. The group then approach scattered pieces of the huge guardian on the tiled floor. Baru extends his hand with determination, saying they must restore the guardian as Flem and Sully stand behind. The shattered guardian's parts began glowing blue as Baru activated his restoration magic. A close view shows a blue spark reigniting within the guardian's eyes. Then the reassembled guardian towers with blue energy while Baru, Sully, and Flem face it. Baru gestures outward and reasons that future visitors will need the Guardian to measure their abilities. The Guardian steadies with a glowing eye as Baru asserted that its role includes turning away unskilled mages. The Guardian lifts a large sword while the trio watches, with Baru insisting they still need its cooperation. But then the Sentinel's eye shines as it swivels toward them. Baru strokes his chin in response, saying he has a thought. The steel giant charges with blade raised, to which Baru dashes ahead urging a full retreat. Under a clear sky on the 6th festival day, the group follows a winding road. Flem mentions that they'll arrive as the festival ends, sharing that he learned a new ultimate sword technique. Baru, pack slung over his shoulder, remarks that the festival gathers nobles from the capital. Flem then reflects that being away might be fortunate since the Swordsman Society is likely still disappointed in him for losing to Baru. Baru strides along with his bag and encourages Flem's sword talent, while dismissing the need to curry favor with authorities. But Flem looks down with a wistful expression and wishes he could act that way. Suddenly, Moma cries out in alarm, fluttering frantically before Baru and Sully. Baru asks Moma what's wrong as Sully looks startled. Sully points toward thick black smoke rising beyond the trees and says a village should be ahead. Baru studies the distant plumes, judging that the amount of smoke isn't from a simple fire. Realization flashes in his eye as he wonders if it could be something worse. He then dashes toward the smoke with Flem and Sully following behind. He races between trees with urgency written on his face until he stops at a burning village where houses collapse and bodies lie amid the flames. Among the rubble, a monster and a villager lie dead as Baru takes in the scene, and more monstrous bodies and a hulking creature appear amid the blazing ruins, implying an attack. Baru runs through the devastation while calling out for any survivors, then notices a lone figure standing on a toppled column as embers drift across the sky. White boots with red laces step into the firelit street, to which Baru recoils in shock from what he saw as his face began to sweat. It was Jira, standing before the roaring blaze with her cloak swirling defiantly in the air.